Chapter 220. And Sue looked around. The lighting was dim, but it was enough for her to see her surroundings clearly. All sorts of strange iron chains hung from the walls. She was tied to a chair, and the floor was mottled with dark bloodstains. It reeked of rot and blood. It looked like a prison cell used to punish criminals in ancient times. What was this place? Did such a place still exist? Where's Mrs. Chi? Wasn't she with her? Why didn't she see her? Shi Sheng sneered. Who do you think kidnapped you? And Sue's eyes widened in disbelief. How was this possible? Mrs. Chi was such a gentle person. Why would she kidnap her? She had no enmity with her. Shi Sheng's movements caused the iron chains hanging from the walls to clatter. In this quiet space, the sound crashed into the depths of Sue's mind, causing her ears to buzz. Creak. At this moment, the door to the basement was pulled open from the outside. A woman with exquisite makeup walked in, holding a medical tray in her hands. When Sue saw who it was, the last bit of hope in her heart vanished. It really was her. Shi Sheng stood in the corner. Mrs. Chi didn't seem to see him as she walked straight towards Sue. She placed the tray on a nearby table, allowing Sue to see what was inside. Knives, pliers, tweezers, and all sorts of medical tools. Under the dim light, they glinted coldly. Goosebumps rose all over Sue's body. Mrs. Chi, what are you trying to do? I have no enmity with you. Why did you kidnap me and bring me here? Mrs. Chi's gentle demeanor disappeared. She viciously pinched Sue's chin and said with a sinister expression, Why? You vixens, don't you all want to seduce him? Relying on your looks, you want to climb into a man's bed? Why are you all so cheap? And Sue was a bit confused. She clearly didn't understand what Mrs. Chi was saying. Look at this little face. It's so delicate it makes people jealous. Mrs. Chi reached out and slid her fingertips from Sue's forehead to the corners of her eyes, cheeks, and lips. Her eyes were filled with madness. Tell me, if I cut off this skin, would you still have the face to seduce others? Cut off skin. Seduce others? Seduce who? Mrs. Chi. Seduce Mr. Chi? And Sue's heart was filled with shock. Her brain, which hadn't yet stopped working, managed to decipher some useful information. Mrs. Chi. Because her chin was being held, and Sue had some difficulty speaking, so her words weren't very clear. You misunderstood. I didn't seduce Sir Chi. Hearing this, Madam Chi suddenly lost control and slapped Sue across the face. Bitch, you still dare to deny it? I saw everything. And Sue's head was dizzy from the beating. She subconsciously looked in the direction of the Shi Sheng. Who are you trying to show that look to? He can't see it now. You're proud because he dotes on you, aren't you? Without this countenance, would he still fancy you? Mrs. Chi laughed sinisterly. She released Sue and turned around to grab the things on the medical tray. And Sue stared at her in horror. Has this woman gone mad? The cold glint of the knife was close to her cheek, moving down like a venomous snake. Ha ha ha, sluts must die, all of them must die. Madam Chi's eyes suddenly turned ruthless, and she increased the strength in her hands. At this moment, the lights in the basement suddenly went out, plunging the surroundings into darkness. And Sue felt something cold cut through the ropes binding her. Without her restraints, she immediately pushed Madam Chi forward and ran towards the door according to her memory. She touched the iron door, but she couldn't open it. She felt a sharp pain in her scalp as someone grabbed her hair and pulled her back. She slammed into the iron chain beside her, and her body went numb with pain. Bitch, you still dare to run? Madam Chi was very strong. She pressed Sue against the wall and wrapped the iron chain around her body. Shi Sheng stood in the corner, speechless as he watched Sue get tied up again. He face-bombed. The female lead's fighting strength. Sure enough, the male lead's fighting strength was all in the supernatural novels. Shi Sheng took out his iron sword and swung it at the iron chain beside him. Like flowing water, the clattering sound reached the ears of the slightly crazed Madam Chi. Her body suddenly froze. Who is it? The only answer she got was the clattering of the iron chains. Stop pretending to be mysterious and get out here. Madam Chi looked around in the darkness, but there wasn't a single ray of light here. She couldn't see anything at all. Her body couldn't help but tremble. Why aren't you running? Are you waiting for me to come and save you? Shishang's voice reached Su's ears. Although she didn't want to complain at a time like this, wasn't a palanquin supposed to be used to welcome a bride? Su took a deep breath and kicked Madam Chi in the stomach. Then, she quickly ran towards the door. This time, she easily opened the door. The scene outside made her stop in her tracks. Are those dogs? Two large dogs, each half the height of a human, were lying in the narrow passageway. When they heard the commotion, they simultaneously raised their heads and looked over. When they saw the humans, they stood up and let out low growls. Their fierce gazes caused Su's scalp to go numb. There were dogs in front and a lunatic behind. How was she supposed to run? Shishang was standing in front of her at some point, looking at her with a speechless expression. Ghost Jie, save me. Su didn't care about her pride and screamed at Shishang. Ghost Jie seems to be very powerful. She hugged her thigh tightly. Shishang walked back with an iron sword in tow. The large dog sensed danger and immediately turned around to bark at the iron sword. At this time, Madam Chi had also caught up. She pounced at Su with a ferocious expression. Bitch. Su gritted her teeth. Fight. At worst, I'll just die. 20 years later, I'll be a beautiful girl again. She quickly rushed towards Shishang. Perhaps it was because humans were always able to explode with great strength when faced with death. She actually avoided the large dogs and safely stood in front of them. She didn't wait for Shishang to scold her and tactfully ran outside. Shishang only used the iron sword to attract the large dogs. He didn't attack them. As soon as Su arrived, she put away her sword and floated outside. Her speed was much faster than Su's. Ghost Jie, wait for me. Su ran as fast as she could. After running out of the basement, Su closed the door to the outside. She even placed a rock on top of the door. Only then did she sit on the ground and gasp for breath. She had almost died down there. It was too scary. Ghost sister, thank you. Su's face was covered in snot and tears. If it wasn't for you, I might have died. Ghost Jie, you're the best. Shishang, who was labeled as a good guy, replied, You're overthinking. I just wanted to see how stupid you can be. Huh? Su stared blankly at Shishang. Idiot. Shishang coldly spat out these two words. Idiot Su. Was she really that stupid? Asterisk pleading for votes. Chapter 221. Mrs. Chi was locked up in the basement. After Su calmed down, she went to the front to call for help. The basement was behind the villa's rockery, and the entrance was covered with a layer of vegetation. Most people wouldn't be able to tell that there was anything wrong with it, so the people looking for Mrs. Chi didn't manage to find this place. When the butler saw the entrance, his expression was also very surprised, as if he didn't know there was a basement here. Shishang stood in the shadows. Feng Jin glanced at her from the corner of his eye. She raised her chin, her expression slightly arrogant and provocative. Then, she disappeared. When the butler went down to the basement, he found Mrs. Chi already dead. She had been bitten to death by the two large dogs Su saw earlier. Her flesh was badly mangled, and the dogs were gnawing on her. Dogs that ate human flesh would only eat if they were fed human flesh frequently. The butler was shocked by this scene. How could Mrs. Chi kill someone? It took a lot of effort to subdue the two large dogs. They also found a lot of human bones in the basement. One of them was the servant the butler said had left. She was no longer breathing, but her body was still warm. She probably died not long ago. Shishang left the basement and floated up to the 4th floor of the villa. The 2nd floor of the villa was the living quarters of the owner, and the 3rd floor was for leisure and entertainment. However, the 4th floor was sealed off. Shi Shang easily entered the 4th floor. There was only one room on the 4th floor, and it was very spacious. As soon as she entered, she felt a cold and gloomy aura, but it was different from the one she felt when she entered the villa. All the windows were covered with black curtains, and not a single ray of light leaked in. She walked around in a circle, only to see a memorial portrait in the middle of the room. The person in the portrait looked exactly like Mrs. Qi. No, it was different. Don't I look like her? A voice suddenly came from behind her. Shi Shang turned around and saw a woman in red standing next to the black curtains. Her appearance was exactly the same as the woman in the portrait. One red and one white formed a sharp contrast in this dimly lit space. The woman smiled at Shi Shang. How did you die? I don't remember. It's good that you don't remember. It's so frustrating to always think about the past. The woman sighed. Perhaps it was because she was a ghost. The woman did not show any malice toward Shi Shang. She slowly walked to the memorial tablet. Shi Shang looked at her expressionlessly, but deep down, he was thinking about the best way to chop her up. However, the woman started talking to herself. The year I died happened to be my 25th birthday. I had just given birth to Nian Nian, and I didn't even get to see her grow up before I died. The woman's name was Su Yun. She and Qi Mo had been lovers since university. Their families had been friends for generations, so it was natural for them to get married. After they got married, the relationship between the two was very good, and the family business was also thriving under the efforts of the two. Su Yun gave birth to another daughter. She should have been happy. But when Su Yun was 25 years old, she was killed. The one who killed her was none other than her twin sister, Su Xian. Perhaps it was due to the strange connection between twins, but Su Xian also liked Qi Mo. When she saw Su Yun getting happier and happier, her heart twisted with jealousy. In the beginning, Su Yun did not know that it was Su Xian who killed her. She did not immediately reincarnate because she could not let go of Qi Mo and Qi Nian. Then she saw that after she died, Su Xian asked after Qi Mo's well-being and even plotted to climb into Qi Mo's bed. At the time, Qi Mo was in a daze because of Su Yun's death. When he saw Su Xian's face, which was exactly the same as Su Yun's, he could not tell who was with him. Although Su Yun was angry at Su Xian's actions, she could only accept it. After all, she was dead and could no longer take care of Qi Mo and Nian Nian. Even if he did not stay with Su Xian, he would still be with someone else. But once, she accidentally overheard Su Xian talking to someone on the phone. When she heard Su Xian's crazy words, she realized that Su Xian was the one who killed her. In order to get Qi Mo, she was crazy enough to kill her own sister and take her brother-in-law. The anger in Su Yun's heart was ignited, and she became a ghost to pester Su Xian. At that time, Su Xian was very afraid, but not long after, she found a Taoist priest. The Taoist priest cast a spell and trapped her in this villa. After that, she never saw Su Yun again. A month ago, Su Yun suddenly brought Qi Mo back to the villa. From them, she found out what happened. She had always wanted to get close to Su Xian, but Su Xian had the amulet given to her by the Taoist priest. So you're saying that you've never gotten close to Su Xian? Shi Shang raised his eyebrows. Su Yun shook her head. No. I feel uncomfortable if I get within 10 meters of her. She looked very calm. If it weren't for her red clothes, Shi Shang would have suspected that she wasn't a ghost at all. Then who was the one who scared her? Su Yun shook her head. Just as Shi Shang was about to ask more questions, footsteps came from the 4th floor. Su Yun's figure flashed and disappeared from Shi Shang's sight. The door to the 4th floor opened. Feng Jin and Ensu's figures appeared in Shi Shang's vision. You can't do anything right. Shi Shang rolled her eyes at the two of them and left in a flash. Feng Jin. What now? Ensu. Big sister ghost seems to dislike me again. When Feng Jin returned to his room, he saw Shi Shang lying on the bed. He quickly closed the door, walked to the bed, and looked down at her. What are you doing? Shi Shang reached out and placed his hand on Feng Jin's forehead. You're too weak. Too weak. What does that mean? Feng Jin suddenly felt that his comprehension skills were lacking. He couldn't understand what she was talking about. Shi Shang sat up and propped his chin up. I originally wanted to eat Su Yun to increase my strength. Too weak. He couldn't even touch a hair on Feng Jin's body. What a disgrace. Feng Jin was momentarily at a loss for words. After a long while, he turned his eyes and asked hoarsely, "Who taught you this method?" He had never told her that absorbing the power of evil ghosts could increase one's own strength. It's such a simple thing. Who needs to tell you? Shi Shang rolled his eyes. Isn't that how it's written in novels? Feng Jin. Did you read too many novels and become stupid? He took a deep breath and kept a straight face. Don't mess around. If you want to increase your strength, you need my help. If you absorb it rashly, you won't be able to handle it. Shi Shang blinked. All right. Then go and grab Su Yun for me. This broken body isn't good at all. Shi Shang muttered the last sentence so softly that Feng Jin didn't hear it clearly. He was too angry at the first sentence. You think I'll grab her just because you say so? Do you think I'm a hen? I just need to stretch out my hands and she'll be squatting on the floor. Hashtag the ghost I'm raising is becoming more and more abnormal. It's about to ascend to the heavens. Hashtag asterisk please for votes, la 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 la. Chapter 222. Feng Jin had heard about Su Yun's situation from the butler. He'd thought that Su Yun was trying to harm Su Xian, but obviously, that wasn't the case. There was another force lurking in the shadows. Su Yun doesn't even know what they are. Do you think my strength will skyrocket if I eat them? Shi Shang asked excitedly. You don't even know what they are, yet you want to eat them? What if you get sick? Feng Jin felt that his self-control, which had been honed over the years, was about to crumble in front of her. He glared at Shi Shang. You're not allowed to leave my sight. Why should I? What's so great about having a contract? Do I have to follow you to the bathroom? I don't mind, but if you don't mind... Shut up. Feng Jin roared at her in exasperation. The thought of her entering the men's room. Why are you throwing a tantrum at me? Do you think I won't chop you to death? Shi Shang jumped up from the bed and said arrogantly, Watch your words. If you push me too far, I'll do anything. Feng Jin. He was so angry that his stomach hurt, his liver hurt, and everywhere else hurt. He took a few deep breaths to suppress his anger and warned, Don't even think about touching those things. Then let me touch them. Shi Shang immediately went along with it. Feng Jin turned around with a dark expression and ignored Shi Shang. Do you have to act like that? I'm just going to touch them. It's not like I'm going to sleep with you. Why are you acting like I'm a thief? Will a touch kill you? Will you get pregnant? With his back to Shi Shang, Feng Jin's expression darkened even further. His eyes were filled with hostility. Did he really raise this arrogant ghost? He really wanted to strangle her to death. Knock, knock. Someone suddenly knocked on the door, interrupting Shi Shang's complaints. Feng Jin walked to the door, relieved, and opened it. Mr. Feng. And Su stood outside the door. Her face was pale and her body was trembling. Is Ghost Sister here? Feng Jin frowned. Do you need something from her? And Su looked around like a thief. I'm not sure what I saw, so I wanted to ask you and Ghost Sister. You're shaking like that. Are you sure you're not scared? Shi Shang's mocking voice rang out from behind Feng Jin, and Su's pale face flushed red. She looked pleadingly at the Shi Shang and clasped her hands together. Ghost Jie, please let me in. This place is too strange. She was just a normal university student. It had only been a month since she could see ghosts, so it was normal for her to be afraid. Ever since she came to this villa, she had been strangled by ghosts and kidnapped. She admired herself for not breaking down. I'm also a ghost. Aren't you afraid that I'll eat you? Shi Shang floated to the door and pretended to be bleeding from his 7 orifices. Sure enough, and Su took a step back. Her breathing quickened as she gasped for breath. 3 seconds later, she said with a pale face, You won't eat me. If she wanted to eat her, she wouldn't have saved her in the basement. This female ghost sister was tough on the outside but soft on the inside. Shi Shang's face returned to normal, and he floated back onto the bed. Feng Jin opened the door, and Su bowed gratefully to him. Then, like a wisp of smoke, she scurried inside and leaned against the wall. All the energy in her body was instantly sucked out as she gasped for air. When she finally recovered, she took a good look at the room. Shi Shang was lying on the bed, looking at his phone. Feng Jin was leaning against the sofa, looking at a few photos in his hands. Su was a little afraid of this man. Not only was he dressed strangely, but he also had a gloomy aura about him. When he looked at people, his gaze was so gloomy that it made people want to commit suicide right in front of him. So, she subconsciously leaned toward Shi Shang. Female ghost sister. What? Is the female lead trying to hug my thigh? Although this female lead is a little stupid, at least she didn't break down. If she praises me a few more times, I'll let her hug me. Su squatted beside the bed and glanced at the phone screen from the corner of her eye. The images on the screen made her cheeks burn. She reflexively looked at Feng Jin. How could he let the female ghost sister look at something like this? Feng Jin probably sensed Su's gaze because he raised his head and glanced in her direction. When he saw that Su's expression wasn't right, he shifted his gaze back to the phone. His eyes darkened, and he got up and walked to the bed. When he took the phone and saw the hot images on the screen, he felt terrible. If you look at something like this again, don't even think about getting clothes. Mental food and clothes. It's so hard to choose. Can't I have both? Feng Jin glared at her and turned off the internet on his phone. Then, he opened Link Together and put it in front of her. Shi Shang. Who the hell wants to play such a stupid game? Why does this guy have such a stupid game on his phone? 5 minutes later. 2 idiots were playing Link Together. They were having a lot of fun. What did you say you saw just now? Shi Shang asked Su as he furiously tapped on the screen. Only then did Su remember what she was here for. She quickly averted her gaze from the screen and said, I was on the first floor when I heard some movement in the storage room. I thought it was the servants, so I didn't pay it any attention. But when I came back, I saw something black crawling into the storage room through the crack in the door. It was like thick fog. Fog. It's a wraith, Feng Jin answered. Then he warned Shi Shang, you can't eat that thing. Shi Shang. Does she have no common sense at all? Once a wraith was formed, it would continuously absorb resentment to strengthen itself. It might be a bit weak in the early stages, but it would be absolutely invincible in the later stages. Moreover, just looking at it made her lose her appetite. There was no way she was going to eat something so disgusting. How did Su Xin provoke a wraith? Su trembled again. And she's already dead. Why hasn't the wraith left yet? Ever since she could see ghosts, she had crammed her knowledge into this field. She more or less knew a thing or two about ghosts. There's still so much food here. Why would it leave? If it were me, I wouldn't leave either, Shi Shang said without looking up. F***CK time's up. It's dead. Then it won't. Come here, right? Su looked around. This room wasn't safe at all. She wouldn't be unable to help and end up dying here, would she? Do you think the Feng Jin is just a pretty vase? Shi Shang rolled his eyes at Su. Can't you be a little more mature? You're the female lead. Even if your cheat is the male lead, you shouldn't be so cowardly. Ghost Jeje. Su was on the verge of tears. You're a ghost, so of course you're not scared. I'm a human. Then why did you come here in the first place? Su scowled miserably. I probably agreed to Qin Yan's request on a whim. It was too late for regrets now. Shi Shang fell silent. Wasn't that true? Many female leads agreed on a whim, only to end up in a sorry state and drag others down with them. It was a classic example of harming others without benefiting oneself. She definitely wouldn't make a decision on a whim until she was sure she had the ability to do so. Asterisk requesting votes, requesting rewards, don't be a coward if you want to update. Chapter 223. Chi Mo's condition continued to worsen. Ever since Feng Jin learned that there were wraiths here, he had become much more serious. This was the first time Shi Shang had seen him take out a talisman and stick it on Chi Mo's room. I won't be hurt by this thing, right? Shi Shang didn't have the guts to enter the room. It was better to be safe than sorry. After Feng Jin finished sticking the last talisman, he walked out of the room and closed the door. It's useless against you. Why? It's for dealing with wraiths. Although you're a ghost, you have a ghost contract with me. Unless it's a special talisman, it won't hurt you. That's awesome. Doesn't that mean I don't have to be afraid of those ghost-collecting Taoists? No wonder Su Yun said Su Xin had a protective talisman. But when she approached, there was no reaction. Feng Jin frowned. He felt that Shi Shang's words were ambiguous. But no matter how he tried to decipher them, he couldn't figure out anything. In the end, he could only nod. He added, but if you meet someone with real skills, you can only run. Mr. Feng, someone's coming. And Su reminded them from afar. If someone saw Feng Jin talking to the air, wouldn't they think he was a lunatic? Sure enough, a servant came down the stairs. She looked like she was cleaning up. When she saw Feng Jin and Su, she nodded politely and quickly went down. What should we do now? Shi Shang floated around, bored. Wait. When Feng Jin said, wait, he meant it. Shi Shang and Su stayed together to play Link and Link. Feng Jin would occasionally go out, but he would return very quickly. The morning after Feng Jin put up the talismans, someone went missing in the villa. Over the next few days, more and more people went missing. Fewer and fewer people stayed in the villa. Some even resigned out of fear. In the end, the only people left in the villa were the old butler and 2 elderly servants. According to the old butler, they had been with the Qi family for decades and had long since considered it their home. Where could they have gone? Feng Jin didn't ask about it. And Su, on the other hand, was a bit anxious. She probably didn't feel good about the disappearance of so many people. After all, those were living human lives. Perhaps it was because she was frightened by Shi Shang's constant sarcasm and Feng Jin's gloomy face, but aside from being anxious, she didn't do anything else. Shi Shang was more curious about Nailan Ing. Didn't Feng Jin say that he would be here soon? The female lead had been here for almost 5 or 6 days, but he still hadn't appeared? This doesn't make sense. If the male lead didn't appear, who would she torture? On the 4th night of the talisman, Shi Shang suddenly looked up from the screen. It's here. And Su immediately began to tremble. Where? For the sake of convenience, their room was right across from Chi Mo's. Feng Jin got up and walked to the door. He stood by the door and listened quietly to the commotion outside. The sound of footsteps could be heard coming from the direction of the stairs. The footsteps were slow and eventually stopped in front of Zimo's room. After a moment of silence, Feng Jin heard the sound of a door opening. However, it wasn't from the opposite room, but from the room next door. Kacha! The sound of the door closing was heard. Feng Jin frowned. After a moment's hesitation, he opened the door to leave. Shi Shang floated in front of him. She's still outside. Just as she finished speaking, a strong force slammed into the door. A crack appeared on the door, and she could vaguely see the person outside. It was one of the 2 old servants who had been left behind. Shi Shang took out his iron sword, his eyes filled with excitement. I've never killed a wraith before, so I don't know how it feels. Why are you blocking my way? Move aside and stand behind me. Feng Jin. Did he take the wrong script? He should be the one saying these lines. Bang. Clang. The door burst open. The old servant outside was surrounded by a black mist. His face was pale, and his eyes were like those of a dead fish. His limbs were stiff, and he was clearly dead. Shi Shang dashed out with his iron sword and slashed at the old servant. The old servant's limbs were stiff, but he wasn't slow. He easily dodged the iron sword. Scram! The old servant spat out. His voice was sharp and piercing, like metal scraping against porcelain. Shi Shang's eyes flashed, and his lips curled into a mocking smile. I haven't learned how to scram yet. Why don't you show me how to scram? If you do, I'll give you a quick death. The old servant let out a bestial growl and pounced on Shi Shang. Feng Jin stood on the broken door and watched Shi Shang and the old servant fight. She didn't use much strength. All she did was swing the iron sword. The old servant's arm and shoulder were cut, but his movements weren't hindered at all. And Su hid behind him, her eyes shining brightly. Big Sister Ghost is so strong. The wraith probably knew that it couldn't beat Shi Shang, so it gave up on the old servant. The black mist poured out of the old servant's body and rushed into Chi Mo's room. Soon, a sharp roar filled the room. But it quickly stopped. Feng Jin's expression changed, and he rushed into the room. The room was a mess. Only half of the talismans Feng Jin had pasted were left. Su Yun and the wraith stood on opposite sides of Chi Mo's bed. The wraith seemed to want to enter Chi Mo's body, but Su Yun had an invisible force holding the wraith back. He deserves to die, the wraith suddenly said. Her voice was no longer sharp, but the overlapping voices of different women. No. Su Yun shook her head. He deserves to die, the wraith repeated. Su Yun shook her head again. He's innocent. Let him go. Su Xian is already dead. She has to pay for her sins. Mo has nothing to do with it. Ha 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 ha. Innocent. How dare you say he's innocent? You don't know anything. The wraith seemed to be enraged. Su Yun, you died early. You didn't experience what we went through. You don't understand. You don't understand. We're going to kill him. The wraith suddenly exerted force and sent Su Yun flying. The wraith rushed toward Chi Mo's body like a tidal wave. No. Su Yun screamed hysterically. She wanted to get close to the wraith, but she was sent flying every time. Chi Mo's limbs suddenly twitched, and his face turned red. He couldn't breathe, as if someone was strangling him. He opened his mouth and tried to breathe, but no air could enter his lungs. Save him. Please save him. Su Yun suddenly flew toward the door and begged Shi Shang and Feng Jin. Shi Shang swung his iron sword and said in disgust, He's just a scumbag. What's there to save? Feng Jin didn't even look at Su Yun. It was obvious that he had no intention of helping. And Su had also seen the information yesterday. She sympathized with those women, so she didn't say anything. However, Qin Yan's pleas echoed in her mind, and she couldn't bear to do anything. What do you mean? Su Yun stared blankly at Shi Shang. Mo was the one who caused the deaths of those women, and Su said weakly. Although Su Xian is their murderer, Mo knows about it. He even personally killed 2 of them. And Su couldn't continue. She couldn't understand why a man who loved Su Yun so deeply would turn into a man whose heart was filled with murder. If Mo hadn't provoked those women, Su Xian wouldn't have killed them. Mo watched Su Xian's twisted expression from the shadows. She felt that this Mo was even more twisted. Asterisk 1000 recommendation votes. Chapter 224. Nonsense. Mo isn't that kind of person. Su Yun shook her head in disbelief. How could her Mo be a scumbag who toyed with a woman's feelings? He even watched as Su Xian killed them. Impossible, impossible. People change. Shi Shang looked at Su Yun. Mo changed the moment you died. Mo loved Su Yun. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hung her portrait in his room. But this love was separated by life and death. It was too heavy for him to express. After so many years of suppression, his heart had become twisted. But why did he become like that in the end? Shi Shang couldn't guess. The only explanation he could think of was that one was dead, and the other was about to die. Mo gradually stopped struggling on the bed. His head tilted to the side, and he stopped breathing. Ha ha ha, dead, dead, all dead. Su Yun, come, become one with us. You're one of us. You should be with us. The vengeful spirit suddenly focused on Su Yun. No, I'm not. Su Yun shook her head. Her expression was still blank. She probably hadn't recovered from what had just happened. Your daughter is waiting for you. Come, so you can be with your daughter. Nian Nian? Su Yun's lifeless eyes suddenly lit up. Where's Nian Nian? My Nian Nian. She's here. She's waiting for you. Come, Su Yun. You killed Qi Nian. And Su suddenly said, her expression furious. She didn't do anything wrong. Why did you have to kill her? Shi Shang face-bombed. This idiot. If she angered the vengeful spirit, let's see who's going to protect her. The vengeful spirit suddenly became agitated. So we were in the wrong? What's wrong with a child paying for a father's debt? She deserved to be Qi Mo's daughter. Daughter. You killed Nian Nian. Su Yun seemed to have woken up. Her expression became ferocious. You killed Nian Nian. She deserved it. Who told her to find someone to kill us? The vengeful spirit's voice grew louder. They didn't want to kill Qi Nian, but the last time she came back, she said she wanted to find someone to kill them. They hadn't gotten their revenge yet. How could they let someone kill them? The vengeful spirit suddenly pounced on Su Yun. Come, Su Yun. You can see your daughter if you stay with us. The red light on Su Yun's body flourished. The vengeful spirit wanted to devour Su Yun, while Su Yun wanted to avenge Qi Nian. One of them had to lose. Su Yun had been trapped here for many years, so his strength was not as strong as the vengeful spirit that had killed many people. Very quickly, he was at a disadvantage. Shi Shang was immediately displeased. This was her food. She was already being lenient by giving them a chance to take revenge. Now, they still wanted to snatch her food. She couldn't tolerate it. Shi Shang rushed forward with his iron sword and hacked at the resentful spirit. The wraith had already experienced the power of the iron sword once. Naturally, it did not dare to meet force with force, so it retreated. After dodging the iron sword, it suddenly charged towards Ansu. What a delicious spirit body! Ansu took a step back in fright, her legs giving way as she fell to the ground. Feng Jin stood to the side, watching coldly. Shi Shang was a bit far away, so he naturally couldn't make it in time. In the nick of time, Nailan Ing appeared and coldly glanced at the vengeful spirit. The vengeful spirit trembled and retreated. A cold light pierced through the black mist. The vengeful spirit didn't even have time to scream before it dissipated into thin air. Nailan Ing had already helped Ansu to her feet. However, when Ansu saw Nailan Ying's awkward expression, she struggled out of his grasp and took a few steps towards Feng Jin. Nailan Ing looked at Feng Jin, and Feng Jin looked at Shi Shang. A talisman suddenly appeared in his hand, and he threw it out. The thin talisman was stretched taut as it shot towards Su Yun like a sharp blade. As soon as it came into contact with Su Yun, the talisman emitted a faint light and sank into Su Yun's body. He walked over to Su Yun and looked down at her. Are you willing to do it, or do you want me to do it? Su Yun's expression was both happy and angry. When she heard Feng Jin's question, she raised her head and looked at him. After a full 3 seconds, she looked back at Shi Shang, who was floating over, and a relieved smile appeared on her face. After so many years, I'm tired. Now that I'm dead, I have nothing to worry about. After a pause, she said, I'll do it myself. The conversation between the two was strange. And Su didn't understand it, but Nailan Ing knew what Su Yun was going to do after seeing her actions. Su Yun transformed into several streaks of red light and slowly approached Shi Shang. He suddenly attacked the streaks of red light, as if trying to scatter them. Feng Jin didn't even look up. Several talismans appeared out of thin air and blocked Nalan Ying's attack. Feng Jin. Nalan Ying gritted his teeth. This man's strength had increased again. And that Ning Ying that night. She was a traitor that Feng Jin had sent to his side. Feng Jin tilted his head and looked at Shi Shang, giving him a reassuring look. Don't worry, absorb her energy. Shi Shang didn't hold back. He focused on absorbing Su Yun's energy for his own use. From time to time, the sounds of battle could be heard. Fortunately, Feng Jin protected her so tightly that Nalan Ying couldn't get close to her. By the time she finished absorbing Su Yun's energy, Nalan Ying was still going. The weak energy in her body had been replenished. Shi Shang rushed over with his iron sword and stood in front of Feng Jin. Nalan Ying, are you here to die? Shi Shang laughed sinisterly. I thought you weren't going to come. Ning Ying. Why hadn't he realized how despicable this woman was before? I won't go easy on you even if you call me that. Shi Shang snorted and attacked. Nalan Ying's fight with Feng Jin had already exhausted most of his energy. Shi Shang was in peak condition right now. Taking advantage of this situation, Shi Shang naturally had to cut off one of Nalan Ying's arms. Shi Shang realized that as long as she didn't show any killing intent toward the male and female leads, there wouldn't be any restrictions. Right now, they were just exchanging pointers. Swords didn't have eyes. It was none of Shi Shang's business where it hurt. Nalan Ying's movements were a tad slower due to his exhaustion. The iron sword swept past him and injured his arm. Earlier, he'd already seen how this sword could injure wraiths. Now that it had landed on him, the pain was bone-piercing. After weighing the pros and cons in his mind, he quickly retreated to a corner of the room. He pulled Su into his arms and jumped out of the nearby window. Feng Jin, Ning Ying, just you wait. Who do you think you are? Shi Shang quickly added. He didn't know if Nalan Ying heard him or not. Everything in the room that could be destroyed had been destroyed. Everything that couldn't be destroyed had also been destroyed. Everyone from the Qi family was dead as well. The only ones left were the old steward and an old servant. Feng Jin had a private conversation with the old steward. When he came out, he was holding a box in his hand. What's this? Shi Shang asked curiously as he looked at the box in his hand. Feng Jin sealed the box with 3 layers of talismans. He stared at Shi Shang with dark eyes. You can't touch it without my permission. Who cares? Shi Shang dragged his sword into the carriage. Hurry up and go back. I need to change. Feng Jin sighed. Watch me add more chapters. Aren't you going to vote? Chapter 225. When they arrived at Feng Jin's neighborhood, Feng Jin's expression turned uglier and uglier before his car even entered the neighborhood. The temperature in the neighborhood dropped as if a storm was approaching. Shi Shang looked at him, baffled. Why did you suddenly change your attitude? When they went upstairs, Shi Shang knew why Feng Jin looked like he was about to kill someone. Feng Jin's door was wide open, and the interior was in a mess. It was obvious that a burglar had broken in. Feng Jin didn't look at the mess and headed straight for the room next to his study. The door to that room was also wide open. Feng Jin didn't stop her from entering, but the moment Shi Shang entered, she felt an uncomfortable force. She instinctively retreated to the door and stuck her head out to look inside. The room was well lit, and there were shelves on all 4 walls with all kinds of strange things on them. There were peach wood swords, copper coins. There was even a cauldron in the middle. Feng Jin opened a secret compartment in the wall. Inside was a combination lock cabinet. He opened it and took a look inside. Before Shi Shang could see what was inside, he put the box back in and closed it, restoring the room to its original state. Shi Shang clung to the doorframe. What were the intruders looking for? Feng Jin lifted his eyes and looked at him coldly. Go and clean up the place. I'm not your servant. Shi Shang continued to claw at the doorframe. I'm not going. How can I do this kind of work? You don't want the clothes? You said you'd give me the clothes when you came back. Shi Shang glared at him. Feng Jin ignored her and cleaned up the room himself. Shi Shang stood there for a while, scratching his head, then turned and walked to the living room. Ghost's clothes were made of special paper. Feng Jin made 2 sets himself and waited for him to come out with the clothes. Looking at the empty living room, he felt like he had walked into the wrong place. Where were the things in his house? Although it was a little messy earlier, it wasn't as empty as it was now. Shi Shang floated in from outside, looking a little unhappy. Where did you put the things in the house? Feng Jin suppressed his anger. I threw them away, Shi Shang answered matter-of-factly. Threw them away? Feng Jin took a deep breath. I told you to clean it up, not throw it away. Is it not clean enough now? Shi Shang looked at her with disdain, as if saying, Why are you so hard to please? Why don't you go to heaven? Feng Jin, it was clean enough, so clean that it was as if he had moved into a new house. Fortunately, he only asked her to clean up the living room. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to live here anymore. After burning the clothes for her, Feng Jin could only clean up the study and bedroom himself. So what was the point of him raising a ghost? Was he trying to make things difficult for himself? Shi Shang was a little dissatisfied with the new clothes. The color was pretty, but the style was ugly. It was not pretty at all. However, his appeals were all rejected. Shi Shang ran away from home in a fit of anger. On Su's house. And Su was bound to the bed by Nalan Ing. Nalan Ing, let me go. And Su's eyes were bloodshot. She wanted to break free from Nalan Ying's grip, but her strength was no match for his. From the first time he appeared, her life had undergone a complete change. She didn't understand why she was so unlucky to meet Nalan Ing. There were so many women in the world. Why did he have to choose her? And Su hadn't experienced much with Nalan Ing yet. She was afraid of him, but more than that, she was conflicted. And Su and Nalan Ing had been separated for so long, but as soon as they met again, he ignored her wishes and did this to her. And Su couldn't accept it. And Su's voice was hoarse from crying. She could only shake her head. Nalan Ing grabbed Su's chin and declared domineeringly, Woman, you're mine in life, and you're my ghost in death. Don't even think about running away. No. The Yin energy in Nalan Ying's body surged into hers, and the chill seeped into her bones. She suddenly remembered the words of the person who had broken into her room. He was sucking her yang energy. He was harming her. She also remembered what the resentful spirit had said in the villa. What a delicious spiritual body. Spiritual body. She felt like she had heard this term somewhere before. And Su felt a little dizzy. She couldn't feel the waves of chill coursing through her body. Her consciousness drifted back to the courtyard she'd lived in when she was young. Grandma was sitting under a locust tree. She placed a strange jade pendant around Su's neck. And Su, remember, you can't take this jade pendant off, and you can't go to places with dense Yin energy. You have to remember Grandma's words, okay? Little Su held the jade pendant in front of her chest and asked curiously, Why? It's so heavy. I don't feel good. Little Su held the jade pendant in front of her chest and asked curiously, Why? It's so heavy. I don't feel good. You were born with a spiritual body. It's easy for you to attract evil beings. Mom, are you talking nonsense to Su again? Before Grandma could finish speaking, Su's mother came out of the house and interrupted her. What era are we living in? Why are you still so old-fashioned? Mom, I didn't mean anything by it. It's just that Su is still so young. What if I scare her? Su didn't remember the rest of the conversation. She only remembered that she hadn't gone back since that time, and she hadn't seen Grandma again. But she still carried that jade pendant with her. Spiritual body, jade pendant, Su's dreams were a mess. There was the first time she saw a ghost covered in blood and screamed in fright. There was the ordinary life of a university student. There were also scenes of her spending time with her family. There was also the first time she met Nalan Ing, and the indescribable scene on the ancient carved bed. At the very last moment, she seemed to hear him whisper in her ear, "The taste of a spiritual body is indeed different." And Sue abruptly woke up from her dream. The room was cold and cheerless. She was lying on the bed, and there seemed to be that strange aura lingering in the air. Connecting the dots in her dream, and Sue broke out in a cold sweat. Nailan Ying's words after he forced himself on her for the first time weren't her imagination. He really did say those words. So, he had planned this from the very beginning? The more Sue thought about it, the more scared she became. Her heart was in a mess. She hurriedly put on her clothes, grabbed her wallet and phone, and stumbled out of the house. Only when she was far away from the house did she let out a sigh of relief. Only then did she remember to touch her chest. There was nothing there. She couldn't remember when the jade pendant had disappeared. And Sue walked down the street. Her body was cold, and her limbs were numb. She didn't know what to do. She scrolled through the contacts on her phone again and again, but she didn't know who to call. Who could listen to her talk about such a bizarre thing? Who could tell her what was going on? A figure suddenly flashed through Sue's mind. Ghost Jeje. Right. She could find her. Her fingers quickly swiped across the screen. Only when she reached the end did she remember that Ghost Jeje didn't have a phone. How was she supposed to find her? Asterisk tipping and updating. Thank you, soft girl, for your tipping. Chapter 226. After running away from home, Shi Shang had drifted through the streets for a while. Every so often, he would see ghosts. This world was too filthy. Countless people who had died unjustly remained in this world. Obsession, unwillingness, resentment, longing. No matter what it was, these people would remain in this world after they died. Shi Shang's expression was one of mockery as he walked through the well-dressed crowd. Don't be fooled by their fancy suits and leather shoes. Their hearts were already rotten to the core. No matter how many spices they used, they couldn't hide the stench that came from their bones. The evil that grew in the darkness corroded people's hearts until they became rotten. Shi Shang drifted through the air. He didn't know where he had drifted to, but the houses in the vicinity had become much shorter. She floated to a rooftop and sat down. Her body leaned back slightly, and her hands were on the ground behind her. She raised her head and looked at the dark night sky. The night wind blew past, causing her aqua blue dress to sway slightly. Her fine black hair fluttered behind her back. Time passed by like flowing water, until the entire city fell silent. Shi Shang stretched his neck and jumped down from the rooftop. He landed on the old street and walked forward slowly, aimlessly. Help! Go away, don't come over, Shi Shang's footsteps paused. He tilted his head and looked at a nearby alley. Under the dim yellow streetlights, a few black figures surrounded a girl. They were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Get lost. Shi Shang stared at them for a full minute. He watched as the black figures pressed the girl to the ground and watched as the girl screamed in despair. She sighed. She pulled out her iron sword and rushed over. With a sweep of her iron sword, the black figures were reduced to ashes. Without the cold and sticky sensation on her body, Sue's nearly collapsed mind gradually returned to her. She saw the girl in the aqua blue dress standing in front of her with an iron sword. Her expression was neither sad nor happy. Her eyes were so calm that it was frightening, as if she had lived through 1,000 years. She seemed to be standing in the clouds. She could only be revered, and no one could profane her. However, as soon as she opened her mouth, the entire scene changed. I really don't know how you managed to survive until the grand finale if you're like this. Shi Shang mockingly thrust his iron sword at Sue. Sue's face was still covered in tears. Can't big sister female ghost not speak without thorns? She got up from the ground and wiped the tears off her face. Ghost sister, why are you here? She didn't know why, but as long as the female ghost sister was here, she felt very safe. It's none of your business. Shi Shang took back his iron sword. Sue, fine, she wouldn't ask. Ghost Jeje, thank you for just now. This is the third time you've saved me. And Sue changed the topic. 3 times? How could there be 3 times? Did I save you once in your dream? How could she only remember 2 times? Could it be that she could still save her while sleepwalking? And Sue started counting with her fingers. The first time was in the basement, the second time was in Chimo's room, and the third time was just now. I have no way to repay you. How about I repay you with my body? What the hell? Offering herself to him? This Bao Bao isn't the male lead. What the hell are you offering yourself to me for? This Bao Bao isn't a lesbian. Also, the second time, it was Nalan Ing who saved you. It had nothing to do with me. And Sue's face paled as she tried to twist her words. In the end, you were the one who killed the resentful spirit. Shi Shang. Unreasonable. Shi Shang turned to leave. Seeing this, and Sue hurriedly followed. Ghost Jie, do you live with Mr. Feng? Shi Shang. What did it have to do with her? Ghost Jie, can I follow you? Ghost Jie, don't fly so fast. Not long after they left, Nalan Ying's figure appeared out of thin air. He frowned as he looked around, then disappeared again. In the end, Shi Shang couldn't get rid of the female lead. She was practically a magnet for evil spirits. Wherever he went, he'd run into her. When they returned to Feng Jin's residence, and Sue was shocked by the barren interior as soon as she stepped through the door. Did Mr. Feng just move? It's so clean. Who told you to pick up random people? Feng Jin's expression darkened in front of Sue. Of all people, he had to pick up Nalan Ying's woman. I didn't pick her up, Shi Shang replied with a straight face. Then how did she follow you back? Feng Jin's expression darkened even further. He refused to believe that this woman could find her way to his neighborhood on her own. I don't know. Maybe she covets my beauty. Shi Shang started spouting nonsense. You should know that someone as beautiful as me can attract both men and women, young and old. Feng Jin. I'm about to explode. And Sue wasn't in the mood to ridicule Shi Shang's narcissism. She shrank behind Shi Shang in fear. Ghost Jie, Mr. Feng looks so angry. He wouldn't kick her out, right? As it turned out, and Sue wasn't overthinking things. Feng Jin really did kick her out. What did she think his house was? She couldn't just walk in whenever she wanted to. Shi Shang only gave Sue a helpless expression. She was currently living under someone else's roof. She didn't want to be kicked out. So, in order not to be kicked out, Shi Shang allowed Sue to stay in the hallway. She was born with a spiritual body. She's a magnet for ghosts and spirits. Don't mess around with her. Feng Jin glared at Shi Shang. Can't you be a little more obedient? I'm a quiet and beautiful girl, Shi Shang replied without blushing or skipping a beat. Feng Jin. He walked over to Shi Shang's side and sat down. There was a hint of helplessness and anxiety in his voice. Be a little more obedient for now. I'm going to leave for a while. Where are you going? Feng Jin glanced at her, then lowered his gaze and leaned forward slightly. He clasped his hands together and pressed them against his forehead. Stay at home and wait for me to come back. That was all he said in the end. Then, he got up and went into the study. Shi Shang frowned as he stared at the books in the study. She rolled around on the sofa twice before finally getting up and going straight into the study. Feng Jin was standing by the study's window. He didn't turn on the lights. The colorful neon lights outside cast a long shadow on the ground, giving off a sense of desolation and loneliness. Shi Shang rubbed his palms together. If it still doesn't work this time, I'm not going to play anymore. Feng Jin's body stiffened. He cracked his neck and turned around. Then, without any warning, he was pounced on. The window behind him wasn't closed, so half of his body was pressed outside. The familiar, cold sensation on his body made him give up on attacking. A pair of small, cold hands grabbed his wrist, and a not-so-gentle force entered his body from his wrist. The force rampaged through his body, but it didn't hurt him. Instead, It gave him a very strange feeling. It was familiar, but it was accompanied by palpitations. His body was still a little stiff, so he could only half support the person in his arms. In the darkness, the way she gritted her teeth and endured the pain made his heart ache. *, please vote. Chapter 227. And Sue pushed the door open and entered. She was startled by the dense array of talismans. Ghost Jeje, this. What is Mr. Feng doing? Why did he use so many talismans to trap her? Tear them off. Oh, okay. And Sue closed the door and went to tear off the talismans. But as soon as her hand came into contact with the talismans, she felt a burst of burning pain. She shivered. Feeling that she could endure the pain, she quickly tore off all the talismans. By the time she was done, her hand was a bloody mess. It's done, Ghost Jeje. And Sue placed her hand behind her back. Idiot. Shi Shang floated in front of her. Give me your hand. Ah, it's fine. And Sue retreated with a red face. Hurry up. My time is measured in seconds, okay? Only then did Sue extend her hand. Shi Shang held her hand, and a cool sensation enveloped her hand. The burn marks on her hand from the talismans healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Let's leave it at that for now. I need to conserve my spiritual power, or else I won't be able to win in a fight later. Shi Shang let go of Sue. Her hand was already scarred. Although it was a little ugly, it didn't hurt at all. And Sue was surprised. Ghosts had this ability? Shi Shang couldn't be bothered to explain the difference between ghosts and ghost cultivators. He directly floated outside. Ghost Jeje, where are you going? And Sue hurriedly chased after him. Shi Shang paused and frowned. She didn't seem to know where Feng Jin had gone. The location wasn't written on the invitation either. No wonder he showed it to her so fearlessly. Ghost Jeje? And Sue looked at him in confusion. Why was he so impatient one moment, then suddenly stopping the next? Shi Shang scratched his head in annoyance. In his desperation, he asked Sue, "Do you know where the Exorcist Summit is?" Exorcist Summit? And Sue shook her head innocently. She'd only heard of exorcists, but hadn't had much contact with them. She'd never even heard of the Exorcist Summit. Chengdu Mountain. There were several famous Taoist temples here. The violent explosion woke up the people sleeping on Chengdu Mountain. They didn't even have time to put on their clothes before running down the mountain. What's going on? What's going on? I feel the entire mountain shaking. An earthquake? I don't see any flames. I don't know what it is. Let's go down and take a look. The group hurriedly ran to the foot of the mountain. There was a big black hole at the foot of the mountain, cutting off the path up the mountain. Lightning continued to flash in the crater. There were quite a few people running down, but they were clearly separated into two groups. What is this? How did such a big hole appear? They didn't see any sparks, only the sound of an explosion. Do you still remember the news not long ago? A baby-faced young man asked weakly. Little White, are you talking about the news of a sinkhole in the neighborhood? The middle-aged man beside him immediately answered. The boy called Xiao Bai nodded. Don't you think this is very similar to the description in the news? There was a sudden explosion, but there were no sparks. A large crater appeared, and there was lightning in the crater. Little White is right. Could it be that aliens have landed on our Chengdu mountain? The group of people standing opposite them immediately started mocking and ridiculing them. Usually, we say that you Baiyun Taoists are ignorant and uncultured, but you still act as if we're ignorant and uncultured and are especially proud and shameless. Haven't you read science? How could there be aliens in this world? You're awesome. Your monastery of Eternal Spring is so awesome. How come your incense money can't compare to ours? You want to fight? Come on, let's fight. Do you think we're afraid of your monastery of Eternal Spring? Blah blah blah. Just as the two sides were about to start fighting, someone suddenly saw a figure appear on the other side of the crater. he shouted. "Look over there." Lightning crackled, illuminating the figure on the other side. It was very strange. "Is that a person or a ghost? Or an alien?" "It's a ghost," Little White said. However, his voice was too soft and was drowned out by the people on both sides. Shi Shang almost knelt down in front of this group of people. Were these people from a Taoist monastery? He couldn't tell at all. They were practically no different from commoners. They ruined her image of Taoists too much. The figure they saw was Ensu. Shi Shang floated next to Ensu. Other than Little White, no one else saw her. "Go over and ask them where the Exorcist Summit is being held." Shi Shang didn't have much hope. These people were clearly trash. They were probably just relying on the monastery's reputation to fool those ordinary people. They couldn't even see her. Bad review. It would be a miracle if they knew about the Exorcist Summit with real talents. And Sue had followed her all the way here. She was completely dumbfounded. She actually blew up such a huge crater in front of Mount Tiandu and wanted her to ask the people on the other side where the Exorcist Summit was being held. Wasn't this a challenge? They could tell you. And this crater? It was exactly the same as the one in her neighborhood. Right, she always felt that her voice was familiar. That time, she and Nailan Ing. Wasn't that her voice that suddenly appeared? Why did she overlook that sword before? Thinking back to what she said back then, and Sue's heart warmed. She had warned her that Nailan Ing had bad intentions, but she didn't take it to heart. And Sue's face was flushed red and burning. Ghost Jejia had actually seen her and Nailan Ing doing that. She didn't know how much Ghost Jejia had seen. She felt too ashamed to face anyone. And Sue ran to the other side like she was escaping. The people on the other side weren't demons or ghosts, so she wasn't afraid. But when she thought about the crater next to her, she felt a little guilty. "He's here. What does he want?" "Hey, it's a girl." Countless lights swept toward her face, almost blinding her and causing her to fall into the crater. And Sue nervously walked over to the group of people who were staring at her with strange gazes. Her heart was thumping wildly. "Will they attack me?" "Miss, why were you? Are you a human or an alien?" A man wearing a bear shirt stamped with a picture of a little bear stammered. "I'm a human." And Sue was speechless. How did she look like an alien? "Oh, you're a human. That's good." The little bear guy patted his chest to calm himself down. "That's not right, miss. What are you doing here in the middle of the night? And this crater, did you make it?" "No." And Sue shook her head honestly. Ghost Jejia had made the crater, so it wasn't a lie. "Miss, what business do you have at Mount Tiandu in the middle of the night?" That." And Sue scratched her head awkwardly. "I wanted to ask where the Exorcist Summit is being held." "Does anyone know?" "Exorcist?" the little bear guy asked. And Sue nodded like a chick pecking at rice. She looked at the man expectantly. The little bear guy looked confused. "What's that?" And Sue, how could a Taoist priest of Mount Tiandu not know what an exorcist is? "Are you kidding me?" Asterisk, please vote. Chapter 228. Clearly, there were many people who didn't know. Most of the people here didn't know about exorcists, but they'd seen them in novels before. Were there really exorcists in the real world? How was that possible? Shi Shang floated to Ensu's side with an, as expected, expression on his face. He scanned the crowd. Finally, his gaze landed on the baby-faced youth, Xiao Bai. Little White was staring straight at her with a pair of clear black and white eyes. Yes, he was looking at her, not Ensu. He could see her. "Does no one know where the Exorcist Summit is being held?" Ensu asked again. He couldn't have escaped from some mental hospital, right? "I think so." "Exorcist Summit?" "You've read too many novels, haven't you?" Shi Shang floated to the front of the youth. Xiao Bai took a step back, but his gaze didn't move away. As expected, He could see him and even knew that he was a ghost. When Ansu mentioned the Exorcist Summit, his expression clearly wasn't right. You know about the Exorcist Summit? Xiao Bai's clear eyes suddenly turned misty. Without any warning, he hugged the person next to him and started crying. There's a ghost. Shi Shang. F*CK, was that calm look just now all an act? The person next to Xiao Bai pulled him down with a pained expression. Xiao Bai's acting up again. Senior brother isn't here. What do we do? There really is a ghost. Xiao Bai hugged the man's arm. Believe me. Okay, I believe you. I believe you. Senior uncle will send someone to protect you, okay? You too, hurry up and bring Xiao Bai up. Shi Shang was speechless. The only thing he could see was actually a patient in the eyes of these people. Where did Mount Tiandu get its reputation from? Shi Shang told Ansu to find an opportunity to retreat. She followed the youth up the mountain. Halfway up, Shi Shang felt that something was wrong. They couldn't go up. She fell silent, then took out a smoke bomb from her space and threw it at the two people in front of her. The smoke dispersed. The moment it came into contact with the smoke, the three people in front of her collapsed to the ground. The effect is still so good. It has a long shelf life. Shi Shang muttered a few words and wanted to possess Little White's body. However, as soon as she got close to him, she felt the same pure aura as the one on the mountain. She could only give up the idea and use the iron sword to carry him down the mountain. When he saw Ansu at the designated location, Shi Shang was a bit surprised. Is her IQ rising? She managed to escape so quickly. Ghost Jijia, why did you kidnap him? This is kidnapping. It's against the law. How am I supposed to ask if I don't tie him up? Shi Shang rolled his eyes at Ansu. Don't talk to me about the law. I'm a ghost. The law can't control me. Ansu. Fine, there really weren't any laws against ghosts. Xiao Bai was awakened by a slap. The person who slapped him was the lady he had seen before. Diagonally above him, there was a ghostly figure. Ah! Ansu quickly covered Little White. Don't scream, don't scream. We won't hurt you. Ansu had never thought that there would come a day when she would do something like this. When she said these kinds of lines, she still felt a little nervous. Woo! Little White shook his head vigorously. While Ansu was covering him, he bit her hand. Ah! Ansu let go of him in pain. Help, help! Little White immediately screamed at the top of his lungs. This idiot, he couldn't even hold a person down. Shi Shang pulled out the iron sword and thrust it at Little White's face. If you scream again, I'll kill you. Little White choked on his sobs and struggled to stop himself. Where's the Exorcist Summit? Little White looked at him with teary eyes. To be honest, when he wasn't screaming, one couldn't tell that he was afraid at all. I don't know. Shi Shang felt like he was bullying a child. But for the sake of that idiot Feng Jin, he could only continue to bully him. The iron sword pressed against Little White's neck. Speak, or die. Live or die, you choose. I really don't know. Little White shook his head. His eyes were brimming with tears. He looked so pitiful. Ansu's Virgin Mary heart started to act up again. But when she saw Shi Shang's dark expression, she could only suppress her Virgin Mary heart. Big Sister Ghost was the one who was important. She couldn't afford to offend her. Shi Shang sneered. If you don't want to talk, I have ways to make you talk. Shi Shang dragged Little White to a nearby river and threw him in. Little White flopped around in the river, about to sink. She ordered the iron sword to pull him up. Little White's entire body trembled. I don't know the exact location. I only know the general location. 7th Bend Street. The city's most ancient buildings were all gathered here. This was the famous old street. Looking down from above, this street looked like a winding snake. There were a total of 7 bends, which was why it was called 7th Bend Street. This was the place Little White had mentioned but he didn't know the exact location. I really don't know the exact location. Little White looked like he was about to cry. Are you a ghost? Why are you attending the Exorcist Summit? Shi Shang glanced at the talkative Little White. Little White immediately shut his mouth and moved closer to Ansu. She was a human, after all. He felt safer with her around him. Right now, 7th Ben Street was shrouded in darkness. It was like a huge beast hiding in the night, ready to devour any intruders. Ansu's expression was strange the moment she arrived. Her eyes were filled with complex emotions. Shi Shang frowned as he looked at her. Sensing Shi Shang's gaze, Ansu swallowed and asked with difficulty, Ghost Jeje, are we going in? What else? Sightseeing? Sightseeing? Ansu's breathing quickened. Her body trembled like a leaf in the autumn wind. A hint of suspicion flashed through Shi Shang's eyes. A moment later, he remembered that this was the place where the male lead and female lead first met. No wonder she looked so scared. Right now, she would rather follow him than be with Nailin Ing. She was probably more afraid of Nailin Ing than she liked him. It seemed that Nailin Ing had no choice but to distance himself from love. The more the female lead ignored him, the more he would like her, right? The law of fiction was never wrong. Then wait outside. Shi Shang dragged his iron sword and was about to float inside. Let her stay here by herself? Ansu scanned her surroundings. It was completely empty. There wasn't a single soul in sight. Strange creatures could jump out of the darkness at any moment. She ran after him. I'll follow Ghost Jeje. She didn't want to stay here by herself. It was too scary. Little White stood there blankly. They didn't care about him anymore? How was he supposed to go back? Little White looked around. Seeing that the people in front of him were about to disappear, he hurried after them. This place didn't give him a good feeling. It was better to follow them. Tip plus update. Thank you, soft girl, for your tip. Chapter 229. It was quiet all around. Shi Shang looked around but couldn't find any lights. In the end, Ansu's IQ suddenly came online and led her into an alley. After another series of strange twists and turns, they finally saw an old mansion. There were many people gathered in front of the mansion. They were all dressed strangely. Some wore Taoist robes, while others were dressed in suits and leather shoes. Some were dressed like successful people, while others were dressed like students. Everyone was talking in low voices, and it was almost impossible to hear them from afar. Shi Shang immediately spotted Feng Jin, who stood out from the crowd and was by himself. Perhaps it was because of the contract, but when Shi Shang arrived, Feng Jin looked over and their eyes met. When Feng Jin saw Shi Shang, he felt like his head was about to explode. She still came. He looked around. When he saw that no one was paying attention to him, he slipped out of the crowd and strode toward Shi Shang. Why are you so disobedient? He grabbed Shi Shang's hand and pressed her against the wall as he growled at her in a low voice. Shi Shang blinked and pouted. Come on, kiss me if you want. I don't mind, and I don't need you to take responsibility. Ansu. Big Sister Ghost, you've lost your integrity. But Big Sister Ghost and Mr. Feng are quite compatible. Xiao Bai. Is she a ghost? That's a person, right? Feng Jin's mouth twitched. He tightened his grip on Shi Shang's shoulder before finally letting go. With a dark expression, he took out a talisman and pasted it on her forehead. Shi Shang reached out and pulled it down. What are you doing? I'm not a zombie. He actually pasted a talisman on her forehead. Do you want to come with me? Feng Jin looked at her coldly. Shi Shang hesitated. Is there no other way? No. Shi Shang held the talisman and looked at the gloomy Feng Jin, then at the old mansion where the crowd was gathered. If she didn't go, what if Feng Jin couldn't beat these people? She had to back her man up. Forget it. So be it if it's ugly. Shi Shang handed the talisman to Feng Jin. Kiss me, and I'll let you put it on. If you don't want to go, then go back. How dare he negotiate with him? Then I'll just go over like this. You can't stop me anyway. Shi Shang shook his head proudly. I like it when you can't stand me, but you have no choice but to follow my lead. Feng Jin resisted the urge to slap her. She wanted to follow him and even wanted him to kiss her. It was as if he was begging her to go with him. He abruptly turned to glare at Ansu and Little White. What are you looking at? Turn around. Ansu's body trembled from the roar, and she quickly turned around. It was just a kiss. What was there to be embarrassed about? Feng Jin then glared at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai felt a chill run down its spine and turned around as well. Feng Jin lowered his head and his Adam's apple bobbed. Just once. Okay. Shi Shang raised his head and closed his eyes. Come on. Feng Jin pursed his lips and slowly lowered his head to kiss her. It was completely different from the last time she kissed him. It was as if there was an electric current flowing through his body. Shi Shang was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold himself back and accidentally suck away Feng Jin's yang energy, so he only brushed his lips with the tip of his tongue. Then, he moved his tongue away and kissed Feng Jin's cheek. Feng Jin was actually a little disappointed, but he quickly adjusted his emotions. With a cold expression, he asked, Is that enough? It's enough. Shi Shang beamed and nodded. A hint of helplessness flashed across Feng Jin's eyes, and some of the gloominess that had been so thick in the past dissipated. He stuck the talisman on Shi Shang's forehead. Don't take it off. After thinking about it, he reached over and held her hand. This was safer, in case she jumped around blindly. Clearly, Feng Jin's decision was correct. As soon as they arrived, Shi Shang wanted to poke this and that. If Feng Jin hadn't held her back, a world war would have started. Little White and Ansu were humans, so they had no problem following behind Feng Jin. After all, when exorcists didn't show off their skills, they didn't know how strong they were. Feng Jin was more concerned about this. Taking advantage of the fact that the people around them were some distance away, he tilted his head and asked Shi Shang in a low voice, Where did you pick up that pretty boy behind us? It was bad enough that he picked up a girl, but now he even picked up a guy. Did he have any respect for her master at all? I didn't pick him up. I kidnapped him. Kidnapped him. Feng Jin's grip on Shi Shang tightened subconsciously. Why did you kidnap him? Those idiots at Mount Tiandu can't see me. Only he can see me. Who else would I kidnap if not him? The Taoist priests at Mount Tiandu are scamming their customers. I should file a complaint against them. Mount Tiandu. Feng Jin suddenly realized that there was no address on the invitation he showed her. She didn't know where he was, and there were Taoist temples all over Mount Tiandu. She guessed that someone would know, so she went there to kidnap someone and ask for the location. Feng Jin felt like he had to overestimate this ghost of his. Was there anything she wouldn't do? She even dared to kidnap someone at Mount Tiandu. All the real deal at Mount Tiandu are here. Do you see those guys in Taoist robes over there? Feng Jin felt a tug on his hand. He turned around and saw Shi Shang twisting his body and blowing air at a man in a suit in the distance. The man in the suit felt a gust of cold wind blow against his face. It was so cold that he wanted to shiver. However, no one around him felt the cold, so he didn't dare to do anything strange. He didn't want others to look down on him, so he could only bear with it. Feng Jin pulled him back with a dark expression. What are you doing? I'm trying to see if he's the real deal. Shi Shang shrugged. It turns out that he's not that capable. Not everyone here is powerful. There are also exorcist families. That person is from the Lu family. They're just here to broaden their horizons. They haven't reached the stage where they can be independent yet, Feng Jin explained patiently. Oh, there are other people from the Feng family here too? Feng Jin fell silent, his lips pursed tightly. No, it's just me. Feng Jin's voice was a little low, as if he was suppressing something. Why would those cowardly people from the Feng family come? Shi Shang tilted his head and looked at Feng Jin's profile, his mind quickly filtering through the plot. It was most likely the Feng family's fault that Feng Jin had such a temperament. Feng Jin wasn't born this way, but he wasn't born this way. She suddenly hugged him and rubbed her cheek against his chest. She said in a half-comforting, half-arrogant manner, "I'll take over the Feng family for you in the future. You can do whatever you want with them. If you want them to die, let them die. We'll take revenge if we have a grudge. If we don't have a grudge, we'll take revenge first." Feng Jin was caught off guard. His hands froze at his sides as he stood rooted to the ground. He didn't know why she was so arrogant. It was as if taking over a family was as easy as eating. But he enjoyed it very much. He couldn't hug her back because it would make him look strange and arouse the suspicion of the people around him. He looked at the old mansion in the dark. It seemed that he had to go in tonight. Tipping and updating. Thanks to Soft Girl for tipping. Chapter 230. Xiao Bai. A middle-aged man dressed in Taoist robes suddenly strode toward Shi Shang with a furious expression. "Why are you here? Who brought you here?" Xiao Bai blinked innocently at first, then turned to look at Shi Shang. He had been kidnapped. Shi Shang waved his fist at him. Xiao Bai immediately lowered his head and meekly called out to the middle-aged man, "Master." While Xiao Bai was looking at Shi Shang, the middle-aged man seemed to notice something and glanced in Feng Jin's direction. The middle-aged man's pupils shrank when he saw Feng Jin. "This man, is he the one from the Feng family?" He nodded calmly and politely. His gaze swept over Feng Jin, but he didn't see anything out of the ordinary. He thought to himself, "Maybe I'm mistaken. This brat from the Feng family has too much of an aura." The middle-aged man quickly averted his gaze. He slapped Xiao Bai's head and angrily said, "Who brought you here?" He refused to believe that his slow-witted and stupid disciple would be able to find his way here on his own. Xiao Bai felt wronged. It wasn't like he wanted to come here. "Master, you claim to be number one in the world, but why can't you see that arrogant ghost next to you?" Of course, Xiao Bai didn't dare to say these words. He looked around and pointed innocently at Ansu. "It's her." Ansu was surprised to be called out so suddenly. She pointed at herself with her index finger, then looked at Shi Shang. She silently swallowed her words of explanation. Ansu smiled awkwardly at Xiao Bai's master. I'm actually here to look for someone, but I couldn't find the place, so." "But Xiao Bai said he wanted to bring me here. I didn't force him." Shi Shang gave Ansu a thumbs up. "Female lead, you're good. You don't even blush when you lie now." Xiao Bai's master was furious. "What did I tell you? You're not allowed to leave the mountain. You're not allowed to leave the mountain. Are you treating my words like passing wind?" "When did I?" Xiao Bai trembled under Shi Shang's fierce glare. He couldn't finish his sentence. "Master, I'm also curious." So, Xiao Bai's master pulled Xiao Bai to the side to teach him a lesson. Xiao Bai, this idiot, immediately sold out Shi Shang. However, Xiao Bai's master only ordered him not to speak carelessly. He had no intention of avenging his disciple at all. Little White was depressed. Was he really his disciple? Xiao Bai might not know about the Feng family, but how could he not know? The Feng family was an exorcist family that had produced several generations of exorcists. The title of Grandmaster was a title that all exorcists pursued for their entire lives. However, it was already incredible for a sect or lineage to have a Grandmaster. The Feng family, on the other hand, had produced masters for several generations. It was the highest honor for exorcists. Even if the Feng family was not as glorious as before, their foundation was still incomparable to ordinary people. It was obviously not wise to provoke him now. Little White was taken away by Little White's master, leaving Ansu standing alone behind Feng Jin. Because she was standing so close to Feng Jin, many people glanced at her. They were curious as to who she was and why she was standing so close to the Feng family. And Su cried out in distress. Why can't these people see ghost Jie? Aren't exorcists supposed to be lofty? Shang leaned against Feng Jin's back and rested her head on his shoulder. Bored, she asked, "What are they all gathered here for? Was the Exorcist Summit just for chatting? That was way too boring." "Wait for 12 o'clock, Feng Jin comforted her softly. "There's still 10 minutes. Be patient." "We're going to enter this old residence?" Shang noticed that many people had been pointing at the old residence and guessed that they were going to enter it. "This old residence is famous for being haunted," and Su answered timidly. And Su replied timidly. Seeing that Feng Jin didn't stop her, she mustered up her courage and said, "I heard that this family used to be a famous wealthy merchant from the Qing dynasty. However, one night, the entire family died, and it was a tragic death." Triggered side mission, memory fragments. Just as she was getting into the story, she was suddenly interrupted by a system notification. What? What memory fragments? Search for Ning Ying's memories. The system gave her a thoughtful notification. Ning Ying's memories. F*CK. How am I supposed to search for her? Are her memories scattered all over the place? What a scam. Hashtag always scammed by the system. Hashtag Shang's brain, which she didn't use much, quickly connected the dots. The hidden mission's trigger condition was that the target was nearby. And the side mission's trigger condition was the appearance of relevant information. They were talking about the old residence just now. Was Ning Ying related to the old residence? How long had she been dead for? The Qing dynasty. Over 100 years. What are you thinking about? Feng Jin reached out and patted Shang's head. He wasn't used to not hearing her speak for so long. Where did you pick me up? This part of Ning Ying's memory didn't exist. It seemed like she had been by Feng Jin's side for as long as she could remember. At the time, Feng Jin had just turned 18 and had moved out of the Feng family. Sometimes, Feng Jin wouldn't speak for an entire month. He'd have a gloomy expression on his face all day long. If he wasn't locked up in his room, he was taking her out to catch ghosts. Feng Jin frowned. Why are you suddenly asking this? I want to know how we met. Shang put on an exaggerated expression of deep affection. We. Feng Jin was about to say something when a loud voice rang out from the crowd. Time's up. The rules are the same as in previous years. Chapter 231. A haunted house is a must-have location for every summit. This year's haunted house is here. Whoever destroys the thing inside first will be crowned the champion of this year's summit. It's an honor. Feng Jin's deep voice echoed in the darkness. Inside, you'll be attacked by other exorcists. Once your medal is stolen, you won't be able to participate in this summit. What if you steal everyone's medals? Shang suddenly asked. Feng Jin paused for a moment, then answered, You'll be awarded the title of Grandmaster. Is the title of Grandmaster that awesome? You can say that. Those who were observing and learning were all outside. Those who were truly inside were all very experienced. Stealing everyone's medals was enough to prove their strength. Hence, they would be awarded the title of Grandmaster, the highest honor among exorcists. Those with the title of Grandmaster would be respected no matter where they went. All right, then let's steal all their medals. Shang rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Feng Jin weighed the pros and cons. It would be easier to help her than to stop her. Stealing things was too easy for her. Moreover, as a villain, she would definitely do something behind the scenes. Before anyone could react, their medals would be stolen. They wouldn't even know who did it. When the people waiting outside saw people coming out one after another, they quickly surrounded them. What's going on? Why are all of you here? Although people had their medals stolen in the past, they had never seen so many people come out at once. Don't mention it. A short, dark-skinned man spat. I don't know which immoral bastard did this. That's right. When these people come out later, I'd like to see who's so immoral. Even if he stole everyone's medals, I won't acknowledge him. Using such despicable means, Tui. The people outside looked at each other, their hearts pounding. Could there be a Grandmaster this year? And Sue didn't know why, but she had a feeling that this matter had something to do with her ghost sister. Inside the old mansion, Shi Shang returned to Feng Jin's side after taking down another person. How many more are we missing? 3. Feng Jin paused. These 3 should be Guo Cheng from Baiyun Temple, Song Jiang from Chongchun Temple, and Wei Li. Guo Cheng was Xiao Bai's master. Is that the temple on Mount Tiandu? Shi Shang raised his eyebrows and snorted disdainfully. How capable can they be when they're teaching a bunch of idiots? They're really capable. Feng Jin reminded Shi Shang, don't underestimate them. Oh. Shi Shang replied nonchalantly. When Feng Jin saw her nonchalant expression, he had no choice but to raise his guard. He met Wei Li in a side courtyard of the ancient residence, and the two of them just so happened to meet face to face. Grandmaster Shi Shang's Grandmaster, and Feng Jin's Grandmaster's Grandmaster. However, Shi Shang only took out a smoke grenade and threw it out. Wei Li was running too fast. He couldn't stop the moment he stepped into the smoke. Thump. Feng fangs ****. So what if you have so many abilities? If you can't use them, then no matter how much you have, it's just nonsense. Feng Jin. Her methods were getting more and more rough. Previously, she still used her iron sword, but now, she didn't even use it. Where did you get that thing from? How could a ghost carry something like that? Feng Jin felt like all his previous knowledge had been wasted. Shi Shang immediately leaned over. Give me a kiss and I'll tell you. Feng Jin. Can't you talk nicely? In the end, Feng Jin leaned over and kissed Feng Jin. His cheeks were slightly hot. Fortunately, they were in the dark, so Shi Shang couldn't see his expression. I have a space. You know what a space is, right? It's the kind in novels that can store a lot of things. Feng Jin's mouth twitched. Is Feng Jin's Chunibyu syndrome acting up again? Shi Shang paused. Then his tone turned sinister. Are you jealous of me and want to steal my space so you can kill me? Feng Jin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then you have to tell me what your space is first. Otherwise, how can I steal it? Although he didn't have a space, he had read about it in his family's records. Most spaces had mediums, and some mediums would merge with their masters after they recognized them. When their masters died, the space would disappear. It couldn't be stolen. A space sounded tempting, but right now, it wasn't as tempting as this woman. That makes sense. Shi Shang nodded. Then I'll tell you after I've slept with you. Slept with her. This woman's words were shocking. Feng Jin's heart, which had been calm all year round, was now rippling like a raging storm. He sighed softly. In the end, Shi Shang used the same method to take down the other 2 men. Done. Shi Shang tossed the medal to Feng Jin. Praise me. Aren't I amazing? Feng Jin was helpless. Yes, you are. He didn't even make a move. How was he amazing? Was he good at sneaking around? Feng Jin was already thinking of escaping. Those people outside. Forget it. Even if those people ganged up on him, he had to protect her. Just getting the medal wasn't enough. He had to destroy everything in the haunted house. Shi Shang didn't see anything strange along the way, other than the gloomy atmosphere and messy surroundings. Let's take a look at the back. Feng Jin pulled her toward the courtyard behind the house. The courtyard wasn't as dark as it was supposed to be, but they could still make out some dark shadows. Whoosh whoosh, a cold wind blew in from somewhere, causing the debris in the courtyard to creak. Shi Shang frowned. He took out his iron sword and swung it at the pile of debris. Ah! A white figure screamed as it jumped out of the pile of debris. Shi Shang turned his iron sword and swung it at the figure. Big sister, help, help. A tender voice rang out in the courtyard. Soon, a black figure floated out of the room next door and pounced on the white figure, shielding him. Ning, you're back. The hesitant and nervous voice caused Shishang's iron sword to stop abruptly. The sharp blade was a millimeter away from touching the figure. Shishang sized up the woman. She was wearing a bright red wedding gown. Yes, it was the wedding gown used in ancient times. Shishang couldn't see her face clearly. Do you know me? Second big sister. The white figure behind the woman poked his head out and called out uncertainly, Big sister, is that second big sister? The woman patted his head. Her voice was no longer nervous, but rather doubtful. It's her. The child immediately came out from behind the woman. Second big sister, I'm Xiao Yan. I missed you so much. Xiao Yan. Images flashed across Shishang's mind, but they disappeared before he could grasp them. Shishang put his iron sword away. Do you really know me? Second big sister. What's wrong? Xiao Yan took 2 steps forward timidly, but the woman pulled him back. Big sister. She's second big sister. Why are you holding me back? How much do you remember? The woman didn't let go of Xiao Yan. She looked at Shishang and asked. * pleading votes. Chapter 232. Are these ghosts the memory fragments they're talking about? She's actually related to this old mansion? What the hell? This plot is giving me a headache. Can't you come up with something simpler? Like being robbed, killed, and dumped? That's so simple and convenient. Why do you have to create a century-old family feud? Can I take a look at your arm? The woman made another request. Shishang pondered for a moment, then rolled up his sleeves and showed her. These ghosts were important NPCs for finding memories, so it was best not to offend them. NPCs could do whatever they wanted if they wanted to. There was a small red mark on Shishang's shoulder. It looked like it was caused by an injury when he was young. The woman's name was Ning Xian, and the half-grown child was Ning Yen. They took Shishang and Feng Jin to a basement. It was very clean, but there was a strange smell. Shishang frowned and moved closer to Feng Jin. Ning Xian smiled sheepishly. Xiao Yan is a little naughty. He always brings back strange things. Is it just the two of you here? Shishang looked around the basement without batting an eyelid. It was a little old, but it wasn't shabby. There were exquisite bookshelves and desks, which were obviously built in the past. Yeah, it's just me and Xiao Yan. Have a seat. Ning Xian looked at Feng Jin timidly. No need. Can you tell me what happened to me? Ning Xian nodded. Sure. Xiao Yan, go out and play for a while. I have something to tell you. Then can I play with you when I come back? Ning Xian glanced at Shishang. Xiao Yan, be a good boy. I'll play with you. Xiao Yan, be a good boy. Xiao Yan patted his chest confidently and smiled at Shishang. I'll play with you later, second sister. Shishang's lips tugged up into a smile, but her gaze didn't waver much. You're Ning Ying, the second child of the Ning family. The Ning family was a family of merchants. In that era, they were supposed to have multiple wives and concubines. However, the head of the Ning family, Father Ning, only had one wife. However, Mother Ning's health was not good. She gave birth to 2 girls in a row. Mother Ning blamed herself for this and felt that she could not leave an heir for the Ning family. Father Ning didn't care. He loved his 2 daughters very much. The more Father Ning behaved like this, the more uncomfortable Mother Ning felt. Her health was deteriorating day by day, and she was about to die. However, Father Ning found a person from somewhere. That person told Father Ning that Mother Ning was like this because of a knot in her heart. In order to resolve the knot in Mother Ning's heart, Father Ning learned of a method from that person. He made a contract with a ghost king, promising that after Ning Ying grew up, she would marry him in a ghost marriage. The ghost king wanted Mother Ning to be pregnant with a boy. Not long after, Mother Ning became pregnant. 8 months later, she gave birth to a boy, Ning Yen. Perhaps it was because they felt like they owed Ning Ying, but Father and Mother Ning doted on Ning Ying a lot. The other two children, on the other hand, weren't as doted on. Ning Yen grew up day by day, and Ning Ying's coming-of-age ceremony was about to arrive. However, Ning Ying overheard Father and Mother Ning's conversation and learned that they wanted to marry her off to a ghost. She only thought it was ridiculous. How could there be ghosts in this world? She didn't take it to heart. It wasn't until the estate began to prepare for the wedding that the number of people in the estate decreased significantly. Those who remained were all old servants who had worked for the Ning family for many years and knew everything about them. Only then did Ning Ying start to feel afraid. Father Ning forbade her from leaving the estate, so she could only move about in the estate every day. She was accompanied by two old servants and couldn't leave their sight for even a moment. Ning Ying was terrified. She didn't want to marry a ghost, nor did she want to die, so she ran away. However, Father Ning was prepared. Before Ning Ying could escape, she was locked up and not allowed to take a single step out of her room. She thought of all sorts of methods, including yelling and screaming, going on a hunger strike, but the result was that she was tied up and forced to eat every day. On the day of her coming-of-age ceremony, she was forced to change into her wedding dress and wait for darkness to descend. Just as she was about to give up, Ning Xian appeared. She was Ning Ying's older sister, so she naturally had the right to enter the room. Using the excuse that she wanted to talk to Ning Ying, she dismissed everyone else outside. Ning Xian untied Ning Ying, swapped clothes with her, and got married in Ning Ying's place. At the time, Ning Ying was scared out of her wits. All she wanted to do was escape, so when Ning Xian made this request, she agreed even though she hesitated for a moment. Ning Ying and Ning Xian were 70% alike to begin with, and their figures were similar as well. She covered her face with a handkerchief and ran out crying, but no one outside noticed. Afterwards, Ning Xian got married, but the Ghost King discovered that the person he was marrying wasn't Ning Ying. As a result, the Ning family was bathed in blood overnight. Not a single person escaped. Ning Ying, I regret it so much. If I hadn't swapped clothes with you, Father and Mother wouldn't have died, Ning Xian said as she sobbed. Is that so? Shi Shang's expression was cold. Ning Xian was a bit flustered by Shi Shang's reaction. In her mind, even if Ning Ying had lost her memories, she should have at least shown some emotion after hearing about her past, right? But she didn't. Ning Ying just looked at her calmly. It was as if she really was telling a story that had nothing to do with her. Just then, Shi Shang's lips split into a sinister grin. He took out his iron sword and swung it at Ning Xian. Shock and horror filled Ning Xian's eyes. She jumped to the side and asked furiously, Ning Ying, what are you doing? Killing you, of course. What else could I be doing? Shi Shang looked at Ning Xian as if she were an idiot. Why? Ning Xian's face was filled with grief. Why do you want to kill me? Why? Just because you're wearing red. Does that count? Shi Shang looked at Ning Xian with a half-smile. Ning Xian's heart skipped a beat. Panic flashed across her face. Before Ning Xian could suppress her panic, Shi Shang's iron sword was already in front of her. He swung it at her face. Big sis. Ning Yen suddenly appeared in front of Ning Xian. His voice was filled with panic. Don't hurt Big sis. Get out of the way. Shi Shang looked at Ning Yen coldly. I won't. Second sister, what did sister do wrong? Why do you want to kill her? Ning Ying. Ning Xian's body trembled. Her already pale face turned even paler. You didn't lose your memories, did you? Why do you say that? Shi Shang's smile seemed to be mocking Ning Xian. Did you say something to deceive me? Ning Xian could not tell whether the person opposite her had lost her memory or not. She did not answer for a long time. Second sister, since you're back, we should be together. Let bygones be bygones. We're a family. Why did you have to do this? Ning Yen frowned. If you think your second sister cares about you so much, why didn't she let you reincarnate? Ning Yen was just an ordinary ghost. He could be reincarnated. Shi Shang's question stunned Ning Yen for a moment. Then, he explained loudly, I want to be with my sister. Asterisk pleading for votes, begging Lien Rong mooncakes, begging Harry Crabs, begging flower lanterns, begging double yellow mooncakes, begging Jade Rabbit, begging Wu Gang, 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 begging Wu Gang. Chapter 233. Shishang smiled strangely. Since it's your choice, I won't say anything. But, Ningxian, what you said just now was full of loopholes. The truth is completely different from what you said, isn't it? Ningxian's pupils contracted. She quickly tried to recall what she'd said, but because she was nervous, she couldn't remember what she'd said. What did she say wrong? Or did she not lose her memory at all? Was she just toying with her? Shishang's mocking voice slowly rang out. I didn't recover my memory. According to what you said, I'm extremely favored in the Ning family, so you and Ning Yen must have been neglected. Under such circumstances, how could you be willing to marry that ghost king for me? Don't talk to me about sisterhood. If there really was such a thing, you wouldn't have called my name the moment you opened your mouth. The first time you called my name, you were clearly nervous. Or rather, afraid. But when I asked you if you knew me, you obviously relaxed. Ningxian, why don't you explain why your first reaction to meeting your family wasn't excitement, but nervousness? What were you nervous about? Ningxian tugged at her sleeves and explained, We haven't seen each other for so long. It's only natural for me to be nervous when you suddenly appeared. It seems you don't want to tell me yourself. Her first reaction to seeing Ningxian was disgust. It was impossible for her to feel disgust towards a ghost she didn't know. Thus, this was an instinctive reaction from the original owner of her body. She'd been to so many planes, but she'd never sensed such an instinctive reaction from the original owner. Ning Ying's disgust towards Ningxian was the only reason she could sense it. The truth definitely wasn't what Ningxian had said. Big sis, second sis, what are you talking about? Ning Yen didn't understand. His confused gaze wandered between them, but he was clearly dissatisfied with Shishang. One was his big sister who'd just returned, while the other was his big sister who'd taken care of him for so many years. Ning Yen was already biased towards Ningxian. Shishang didn't say anything. He flashed forward and attacked. Ningxian shielded Ning Yen behind her and exchanged blows with Shishang. Ningxian didn't have a weapon, so she was at a disadvantage. After 10 moves, Shishang kicked her to the ground and pointed the tip of his iron sword at her neck. Xiaoyan, hurry up and leave, Ningxian said to Ning Yen. Second sister, let me go. I didn't do anything wrong. Ning Yen cried and shook his head. Big sister, second sister, please let go of big sister. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Ning Yen, let's go. Ningxian shouted anxiously. Go find him and tell him that Ning Ying's back. Hurry. Ning Yen seemed to have thought of something. He immediately got up and ran outside. Shishang gave Feng Jin a look, and Feng Jin took out a talisman and threw it at Ning Yen, freezing him in place. Do you want to find the Ghost King? Seeing that Ning Yen was frozen, Shishang looked down at Ningxian. Seeing her hopes dashed, Ningxian couldn't maintain her composure any longer. Suddenly, she glared at Shishang with hatred. Ning Ying, why didn't you turn into ashes? Back then, that person clearly said, Oh? Shishang dragged out his words. Then I'm sorry to disappoint you. I didn't turn into ashes, but you will soon. Ha 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 ha, Ning Ying, do you think he'll still believe you? If he finds out that you're back, he'll be the first to kill you. Shishang was about to explode. If you have the guts, why don't you tell me the whole story? Just give me a snippet and let I guess? Guess my ass. She had a tool to make people tell the truth, but she didn't have a tool to make ghosts tell the truth. System, Is there anything in the system store that can make her stop blabbering and get to the point? Shi Shang called out to the system in his mind. Host, please don't ask questions that insult the system store. Alright, that means there is one. Shi Shang opened up the system store in his mind. The list of products on the screen dazzled him. Fortunately, the system helped him narrow down the list. Sincerity Pill Degrade Tool 1, 000 points. Every word spoken after consumption will be true suitable for spies, undercover agents, and interrogation can be used by all races 1,000 points. It wasn't expensive, but it wasn't expensive either. In the end, Shi Shang gritted his teeth and exchanged for it. Rather than wasting time with this woman, I'd rather go flirt with Feng Jin. Shi Shang fed Ning Xian the sincerity pill. Where Ning Xian's story differed was in Ning Ying's attitude toward the matter. All the children of the Ning family had received a talisman from the person who'd helped Father Ning and the Ghost King form a contract. It allowed them to see the Ghost King. Ning Ying didn't hate the Ghost King. He'd grown up with her, and they could be considered childhood sweethearts. Ning Ying liked the Ghost King very much. She'd been looking forward to her coming-of-age ceremony, to becoming his bride, to forming a ghost marriage with him, and to being together forever. However, Ning Xian also liked the Ghost King. Moreover, because Father Ning and Mother Ning favored Ning Ying, she was jealous of her. So, she secretly found that person from before and offered him a high price to kill Ning Ying on the day of her coming-of-age ceremony. That person then suppressed Ning Ying's soul and took it away. Ning Xian then married the Ghost King in Ning Ying's place. When the Ghost King found out that he wasn't marrying Ning Ying, he was furious and wanted to kill Ning Xian. Ning Xian had only seen the Ghost King quietly by Ning Ying's side or smiling at her. She'd never seen him so angry. She couldn't accept it, so she lied to the Ghost King and said that Ning Ying didn't like him at all. She liked someone else and had already eloped with him. The Ghost King didn't believe her. Ning Xian then said that she'd been faking it all these years. She knew that he had a contract with her and was afraid that he'd hurt her family. That was why she lied to him. It was also because of Ning Xian's words that the Ghost King, in a fit of rage, massacred the entire Ning family in an attempt to force Ning Ying out. However, Ning Ying was already dead at that time, and even her soul had been suppressed. How could she possibly appear? This was the truth of what happened back then. Ning Xian was jealous of Ning Ying, so she plotted to kill her and marry the Ghost King in Ning Ying's place. She even misled the Ghost King, causing him to slaughter the entire Ning family in a fit of rage. But what about the rest of her memories? What happened after Ning Ying was taken away? Feng Jin suddenly grabbed Shi Shang's hand and apologized in a low voice. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing out of the blue? Is there something wrong with him? Feng Jin patted her head. I can tell you what happened after that, but we have to take care of things here first. Is that Ghost King still here? Shi Shang asked Ning Xian. Ning Xian nodded with a dazed expression. Ning Xian, you actually dared to lie to me. An angry roar exploded from the ground. A pitch-black shadow appeared in the air. He grabbed Ning Xian by the neck. Although his face was ferocious, he was still handsome. Ning Xian's dull eyes were bloodshot, and the cold touch on her neck made her come to her senses. The sincerity pill would not cause people to lose their memories, so she clearly remembered what she had said just now. Mid-Autumn Update. The deadline for the Mid-Autumn Festival activities in the book review section is today at 1900 hours. There's still no one to participate. Hurry up and take action. Who knows, you might be the one chosen. Begging Lien Rong mooncakes, begging hairy crabs, begging flower lanterns, begging double yellow mooncakes, begging jade hair, begging Wu Gang, 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 begging Wu Gang. She was lying on the ground with a pained expression, but her lips were curled into a strange smile. Ning Ying, I only lost to you because father chose you back then, not me. If father had chosen her back then, he would have loved her instead. Then why don't you go back and let him choose again? Shi Shang replied with a faint smile, his eyes curving into crescents. She was clearly the image of a goddess, but for some reason, she made people feel like she deserved a beating. Ning Xian was so angry that she couldn't take her last breath. She died from anger. Her figure gradually disappeared into thin air. Only then did the Ghost King look at Shi Shang. His expression was complicated. There was guilt, regret, suspicion, jealousy, and deep love. Ying Ying. Feng Jin took a step forward and pulled Shi Shang into his arms. He wanted to declare his sovereignty and protect Shi Shang. He was a man. How could he always stand behind a woman? Shi Shang turned his head and smiled at him. Don't worry. Even if there's a celestial standing in front of me, you're the only one in my heart. Feng Jin's expression darkened, and he refused to look at her. She was always sweet-talking. Who knew how many people she'd said that to? But his grip tightened. Shi Shang rolled his eyes. This troublesome little vixen. Her body was much more honest than her mouth. The Ghost King watched the two of them being lovey-dovey. He really wanted to rush up and kill Feng Jin, but he became timid. Just like back then, he didn't dare to look for her. That was why he missed out on so many truths. If he hadn't come here today, maybe. When he thought about how he might have attacked her because of a misunderstanding, he felt that it would be too easy for Ning Xian to die just like that. He looked at Shi Shang with a complicated expression. It was as if he had 1,000 things to say, but in the end, he only managed to say one sentence. Ying Ying, I'll come find you. After saying this, the Ghost King left with Ning Yen. Shi Shang was dumbfounded. They left just like that. They weren't going to fight anymore? He's stronger than Nalan Ying, Feng Jin commented. Shi Shang put away his iron sword and didn't say anything. Shi Shang didn't comment on whether the Ghost King really liked the original Shi Shang. She wasn't interested in outsiders like him. She was only interested in the male and female leads. The Stepmother Alliance was formed to oppose the male and female leads. Please call her the eccentric little princess. The male and female leads. Was it their fault for being the male and female leads? By the time Shi Shang and Feng Jin left, the sky was already starting to brighten. A group of people had surrounded the old residence's entrance and were staring at it cross-eyed. They'd already done a head count, and there were only 4 people who hadn't come out yet. Now that they saw someone come out, they felt like they had eliminated another suspect. However, just as they were wondering which of the remaining 3 people was the despicable one, Feng Jin took out the medals he'd put away earlier and poured them onto the ground. The group of people stared at the pile of medals, dumbfounded. Was it that brat from the Feng family? Was there really going to be a Grandmaster this year? But this was too despicable. They couldn't accept it. Shi Shang smiled sarcastically. Those 3 people were probably still lying in the old residence. And Sue and Little White, who'd found another medal at some point, looked at each other and saw the words as expected in each other's eyes. Feng Jin, you actually used underhanded means. Where are Wei Li, Song Jiang, and Guo Cheng? What did you do to them? They came out with their medals, which meant that they'd gotten all the medals. But those 3 people still hadn't come out. They couldn't have been killed by him, right? Inside. Feng Jin's words were short and forceful. Inside. What did he mean? Little White finally remembered that his master hadn't come out yet. He hurriedly dragged Sue over. Where's my master? He was looking in the direction of Shi Shang, so he was also asking about Shi Shang. Shi Shang hadn't attached any talismans when he came out. Little White's question caused the people who'd been shocked by the medals to turn their gazes to Shi Shang, who was wearing an aqua-blue dress. The weather had already turned cold, but she was wearing a summer dress with 5-quarter sleeves. It was a ghost. Feng Jin, you're actually raising a ghost. Someone shouted. That's against the rules. Mid-autumn update. I wish all the babies a happy mid-autumn, your studies progress, and happiness. The author, who only has 2 hands, also wants to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. He's as busy as a dog, so please understand. Also, I'm begging for Lienrong mooncakes, Harry crabs, flower lanterns, double yellow mooncakes, jade rabbits, Wu gang, Wu gang, Wu gang, Wu gang. Important things must be repeated 3 times. For those who don't understand this joke, please look at the tips. Chapter 235. So what if I broke the rules? Shi Shang took a step forward and stood in front of Feng Jin. If you don't like it, then come fight me. We'll talk after you win. Xiao Bai shuddered in fright and moved to the side, and Su also moved to stand behind Feng Jin. This wasn't right. It was safer to stand behind Mr. Feng. The exorcists were all dumbfounded. This ghost was so arrogant. If they didn't fight, they'd be letting themselves down. One by one, or all at once. Shi Shang leisurely took out his iron sword. Her posture and attitude made people want to beat her into a hole in the ground. What a waste of such a good-looking face. I'll go first. The first to step out was the dark shorty. He also had a sword in his hand, but it was made of peach wood. He walked in front of Shi Shang and pointed his peach wood sword at Shi Shang. Evildoer, today I'll enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Shi Shang rolled his eyes and floated toward the dark shorty with his iron sword. He raised his hand and sliced at the dark shorty's peach wood sword. Unsurprisingly, the peach wood sword was sliced in half and fell to the ground with a clatter. An eerie silence fell over the room. The dark shorty's expression was the most vivid. He hadn't even finished speaking, and you'd already started slashing at him. Did you know the rules? You cheated, the dark shorty spat out. How did I cheat? Shi Shang raised an eyebrow at him. I didn't even yell for you to start. If that's not cheating, then what is it? Shi Shang sneered, his expression extremely sarcastic. Do you know who you're standing in front of? I'm a ghost. Does a ghost know? Why should I wait for you to yell for me to start? I've already started the moment you stepped out. Why do you have to spout nonsense? Do you think I'll wait for you to spout nonsense? Idiot. The dark shorty finally reacted, but in the next second, he was sent flying with a kick. Shameless, despicable. The dark shorty cursed Shi Shang as he was helped up from the ground. Thank you for the compliment, Shi Shang said calmly after the dark shorty finished. Pfft, this ghost wanted to go to heaven. His skin was as thick as the city walls, and he was the type that couldn't be touched. Who else? Shi Shang arrogantly swept his iron sword at his opponents. It's too troublesome to fight one by one. Come at me together. Feng Jin face-bombed. Just how violent was this ghost he'd raised? Previously, they were only tearing down houses. Now, they were tearing down people. Feng Jin, are you really going to indulge her? Someone suddenly turned their attention to Feng Jin. This was their main goal today. They would never acknowledge Feng Jin as a grandmaster. You're an exorcist, yet you're mixing with demons and ghosts. What right do you have to face your ancestor? You have to give us an explanation today. Shi Shang poked the ground with his iron sword impatiently. Various bloody scenes were playing in his mind. Feng Jin, if you personally end this ghost, we can still let you go. Otherwise, we'll have to strip you of your identity as an exorcist. Shi Shang looked at Feng Jin. Feng Jin's expression was the same as the first time she saw him. She could not tell if he was happy or angry. He raised his head slightly and met her gaze. The gloominess in his eyes dissipated, and the corners of his mouth slowly turned up. The sun slowly rose from the horizon and shone on him, coating him with a layer of hazy golden light. It was hard to keep one's eyes open. Even the exorcists had to admit that this kid from the Feng family was really good-looking. When he smiled, it was as if he could steal one's soul. I'm willing to indulge her. Feng Jin's gaze swept across the crowd. His voice was neither loud nor soft. "Feng Jin, do you want to make an enemy of all exorcists? Even if you're a member of the Feng family, they can't protect you. Raising ghosts for exorcists would destroy the stability of the entire profession, so it was strictly forbidden." "I'm enough. What do I need the Feng family for?" Shi Shang replied arrogantly. Her people didn't need anyone else's protection. "Don't spout nonsense here, you evildoer. Do you really think you're that capable? You're just relying on underhanded means." Dark Shorty was the angriest of them all. "Underhanded means? Oh my God, how am I underhanded?" Shi Shang was enraged and said darkly, "All right, since you've said so, wouldn't I be letting you down if I didn't do it? Today, you'll have to acknowledge this Grandmaster even if you don't want to." "Ah! Ah!" Dark Shorty's words suddenly turned into a scream. His body bent over and he fell to the ground in a kneeling position. No one understood what was going on. They looked at each other, but no one dared to help Dark Shorty up. However, even if they didn't help him, the people standing in front of them weren't spared either. They fell straight to the ground. The people behind them quickly retreated and looked around vigilantly. Feng Jin and that ghost were standing in front of them. What had attacked them? Was there another ghost? Ah! Even though the cordon around them was pulled to its maximum, the people behind them continued to fall forward. Even when everyone fell to the ground, they still didn't understand why they were suddenly on the ground. They couldn't stand up at all. Their knees seemed to be useless. Shi Shang's body swayed a little, but he still managed to steady himself with the help of his iron sword. "How can we not take a photo of such a grand ceremony? And Sue, take a picture of them. It's 360 degrees without any blind spots." "Ha!" And Sue looked at Shi Shang in a daze. Why would she take a picture of them? Shi Shang glanced at her coldly. And Sue immediately took out her phone from her pocket and started snapping photos. Not only were there group photos, but there were also individual photos. While Sue was taking photos, Feng Jin stepped forward to support Shi Shang. "It's just a title. I don't care. You don't have to. I told you, you deserve the best," Shi Shang interrupted. He relaxed his body and leaned against Feng Jin. "It's just that I overused my spiritual power. It's not a big deal. I won't joke around with my life." Feng Jin tightened his grip on Shi Shang's shoulder. He lowered his head to look at the girl in his arms, and a hint of gentleness appeared in his eyes. "This wasn't bad. Big Sister Ghost, I'm done." And Sue returned with her phone. Shi Shang nodded. "From today onwards, if anyone dares to disrespect Feng Jin, I don't know where these photos will appear." Shi Shang paused for a moment, then continued, "Oh right. I'll definitely Photoshop them before posting them. Whether they appear naked or in bed depends on my mood. If anyone isn't convinced, they're welcome to challenge me." "Evildoer, you'll die a horrible death." Shi Shang shrugged. "I'm already dead." Pfft. And Sue couldn't hold back her laughter. Countless sharp gazes fell on her, and she quickly covered her mouth. "Lastly, I'll give you a free deluxe package for the police station." Before the crowd could react, Feng Jin and Sue suddenly disappeared before their eyes. Then, an explosion rang out from the old residence in front of them. An old residence was reduced to rubble right in front of them. This was an important cultural building conservation area. Important. Asterisk morning pleading for votes. Chapter 236. Shi Shang had used an ordinary bomb, so they could see the thick smoke rising from the building from afar. Feng Jin sat on the iron sword and looked down at the ruins below. His eyes flashed. Xiao Bai had entered at some point and was currently dragging his master outside. When Shi Shang threw the bomb, she had avoided them. She didn't throw it where the other two were, but they would definitely be affected by the shockwaves, so they couldn't avoid getting injured. Ghost Sister. And Sue was dragged up by Shi Shang. At this time, she was sprawled on the iron sword like a prawn. Her body was trembling, and her words were out of tune. I am afraid of heights. Why was this sword able to fly like in the legends? This didn't make sense. It was said that the people who were present that day were brought back to the police station. When they saw a group of people dressed in all sorts of clothes sprawled on the ground, the police were also dumbfounded. Did they run into some kind of evil cult? It took a lot of convincing to get rid of the suspicion of being an evil cult, but the destruction of an important cultural building was enough to make them suffer. The explosion in the old mansion destroyed the surveillance cameras, and the police only saw them sprawled on the ground outside. This suspicion couldn't be washed away. They couldn't say that it was a ghost who did it. If they did, they would probably all be sent to a mental hospital. They really had to take responsibility for this. Although some of them knew the higher-ups and were spared the death penalty, they couldn't escape punishment. Compensation was a must. It was said that some people lost their family fortune. The lucky ones were the 3 people who were in the old mansion. They only lost money and weren't photographed, nor were they detained by the police. When Xiao Bai dragged his master out, he happened to see the police. This child had been afraid of the police since he was young. His first reaction was to drag his master back and hide him. His master woke up at this time, and the 2 of them worked together to drag the other 2 people out of the building. They thought that they had escaped this disaster. However, it was a good tradition to face difficulties together. The 3 of them were betrayed. If there were 3 more people, the amount of compensation would be less. Since then, Chengdu Mountain and the other exorcist families had fallen out. Reality proved that they couldn't face difficulties together. Shi Shang rested for several days before he recovered. And Su went to school, leaving only Shi Shang and Feng Jin at home. Shi Shang drifted into Feng Jin's room. He was reading a yellowed handbook. When she saw Shi Shang come in, she put her notebook under the quilt in a panic. He got up and drew the curtains. The light in the room suddenly dimmed, and Shi Shang floated from the door to the bed. "What are you looking at?" Feng Jin looked at her hesitantly. After a moment's hesitation, he passed the letter to her from under the blanket. "Everything that happened after your death is recorded here." Shi Shang took it. The paper of the handwritten letter was very rough and looked very old. Back then, that person had agreed to Ning Xian's request because his family was in dire straits and needed a sum of money. So when Ning Xian came looking for him, he took the risk. But after taking Ning Ying away, he didn't do as Ning Xian had said and annihilate her. Instead, he sealed her away. Later on, when the family survived the crisis, he felt very guilty about this matter, so he took care of Ning Ying. After his death, he told the family's descendants to take good care of Ning Ying. The man called Xian. He was Feng Jing's great-grandfather. Originally, Feng Jin shouldn't have been the one to do this. But at the time, there was a problem with Ning Ying's seal. No one else in the Feng family was willing to go, so the task fell on his shoulders. Because of the age of the seal, it had already lost its effectiveness. When he arrived, he happened to see Ning Ying break free from the seal. Breaking free of the seal caused her to be severely injured and even caused her to lose her memories. "Then why did you bring me back?" Shi Shang closed the handbook. Feng Jin's face suddenly reddened, and he averted his gaze. "At that time, you weren't wearing anything. I saw your body, so I have to take responsibility." "Shi Shang, you're looking at Ning Ying, not me. If she hadn't come, wouldn't he have to take responsibility for Ning Ying?" With that thought, Shi Shang felt a little uneasy. He glared at Feng Jin, then floated out of the room. "Feng Jin, what's wrong with her now?" Shi Shang ignored Feng Jin for several days in a row. Every time Ansu came back, she could feel that something was wrong. Since Ansu was living here, she was probably a free nanny. "Mr. Feng." Ansu cautiously walked up to Feng Jin. "What's wrong with Big Sister Ghost these past few days?" That expression was frightening to look at. Feng Jin's heart felt like it was being clawed by a cat. When Ansu asked that question, he shot to his feet and strode into Shi Shang's room. Ansu stared innocently at the ceiling. Inside the room, Shi Shang was sitting cross-legged on the bed. The content on his tablet would make one blush, but a certain ghost was looking at it with disdain. Feng Jin opened the door and heard that strange noise. He hurried in and closed the door behind him. Shi Shang looked up at him. Feng Jin's back was pressed against the door. For a moment, the atmosphere was a little awkward. Only that strange noise continued to flow out. After a while, Feng Jin closed the page on his tablet with a dark expression. How did she find these websites? Feng Jin tossed the tablet aside and suddenly felt helpless. He crouched down and looked up at Shi Shang. Shi Shang propped up his chin. What's wrong? Feng Jin took a deep breath. I'll take responsibility. Humans and ghosts walk different paths. Shi Shang jumped off the bed and tilted his head to look at him. Isn't that what you said? Back then, this guy had said those words so righteously. Feng Jin, I can help you return to the living world. Feng Jin grabbed Shi Shang's hand and looked at him seriously. Return to the living world? Back then, she had only said it casually. She couldn't return to the living world. She still had to reincarnate. I'm not returning to the living world. Feng Jin tightened his grip on Shi Shang's hand. Why not? If you return to the living world, you can be with me. Shi Shang touched his face narcissistically. Because that way, I can always be as beautiful as a flower. Feng Jin. He really couldn't refute this reasoning. Do you like the old Ning Ying or the current me? Shi Shang asked out of the blue. I like the current you, Feng Jin answered without hesitation. The old Ning Ying had been very obedient, but he hadn't liked her. He had indeed brought her back because he had seen her body and wanted to take responsibility for her. He wouldn't say that he liked her regardless of the past or the present. He only liked the current her. He probably liked. Was she being unreasonable? Shi Shang suddenly approached Feng Jin and pinned him to the side of the bed, looking down at him from above. His exquisite features were reflected in Feng Jin's eyes. Feng Jin's heart raced, and he felt nervous. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became ambiguous, and the temperature started to rise. Shi Shang slowly approached him and suddenly asked, If you don't return to the living world, can I do it with you? Feng Jin. Was it really okay to ask such a direct question? Please vote. Chapter 237. Feng Jin told Shi Shang that it wasn't impossible. As long as she controlled herself, she wouldn't cause too much harm to him. Losing a bit of his yang energy wouldn't be a problem for him, and it would be beneficial for her too. Shi Shang refused. I can't afford to take any risks. She could find him in this world, but what about the next one? Who was he? Why did he appear in the virtual world? She had no idea. She didn't know when he would disappear either. They both had a countdown timer. She couldn't afford to take any risks. Feng Jin felt another stab of pain in his heart. He hugged Shi Shang. It's okay. Shi Shang had a helpless expression on his face. He rubbed Feng Jin's head like a puppy. Then I'll think of something. Feng Jin. That wasn't what he meant. What's our relationship now? Feng Jin looked at Shi Shang. The Civil Affairs Bureau won't issue marriage certificates to ghosts. What kind of relationship do you want? Shi Shang retorted. Feng Jin. He wanted some peace and quiet. That night, Feng Jin went out to answer a phone call. And Sue ran back crying as if something was chasing after her. Her clothes were in a mess. Shi Shang frowned and floated over from the sofa. What's wrong? And Sue suddenly pounced on Shi Shang and hugged her as she cried bitterly. There was a faint scent of sex on her body. Shi Shang wanted to push her away, but after smelling this scent, she placed her hand on her back and patted her. After Sue finished crying, she told Shi Shang what had happened in a choked voice. The talisman Feng Jin had given her had been accidentally broken by one of her classmates. She'd thought that nothing would happen since she had her classmates with her, so she hadn't called Feng Jin, who knew that Nalan Ing would kidnap her before she could even leave school. Big sister ghost, sob sob. What should I do? He said he won't let me go. And Sue's voice was choked with sobs as she clutched Shishang's hand tightly. Will I never be able to get rid of him? It's not that serious. Shishang shoved her into the bathroom. Wash up and don't think too much. Perhaps it was because she was in Feng Jin's home, but Sue wasn't as afraid as she was now. She obediently entered the bathroom. By the time Feng Jin returned, Sue had already fallen asleep. I'm worried that she might get pregnant with Nalan Ying's child. Is there any way to prevent that? Shishang asked Feng Jin softly as he stood at the door. Feng Jin closed the door and said indifferently, Nalan Ing won't have any descendants. Wouldn't there be descendants? According to the plot, Sue really wasn't pregnant even at the end. Why? He drank rootless water before. Feng Jin walked toward the kitchen. What do you want to eat? I like everything you do. The corners of Feng Jin's mouth lifted slightly. Let's eat steamed buns tonight then. No, I want to eat meat. Shishang pounced on Feng Jin and hung onto his back. What's rootless water? If I drink it, I won't have any offspring? Was this the legendary all-purpose contraceptive pill? No, the main effect is to suppress his power. The side effect is that he won't have any descendants. Feng Jin rolled up his sleeves and looked at the items in the fridge. He took out the ingredients one by one and started cooking with practiced movements. Shishang tilted his head and thought about the rootless water all by himself. Since she didn't weigh anything by hanging onto his back, Feng Jin let her be. Since it was night time, Feng Jin didn't cook much, but every dish looked, smelled, and tasted great. Although they didn't look like much, the taste was top-notch. Of course, Shishang could only smell the aroma. He couldn't eat it. She slumped on the table gloomily. Did she really have to turn into a human? What's wrong? Feng Jin looked at the braised pork ribs in front of him. You don't like it? Didn't you say you wanted to eat it this morning? Shishang pushed the braised pork ribs in front of him. I like it. If you don't like it, then don't eat it. I'll make something else for you tomorrow. Feng Jin took the plate back. Shishang looked at Feng Jin, his little face falling. I want to eat you. Feng Jin paused, the tips of his ears turning red. He stuttered. Let's eat. In a bit. Shishang propped his chin up and stared at Feng Jin unblinkingly. He asked with a half-smile, What are we going to do in a bit? Feng Jin got up in a panic and put the things on the table into the kitchen. His voice sounded a little strange. I'll take you out for a walk in a bit. I don't want to go, Shishang muttered, then turned around and floated out the window. When Feng Jin looked back, she was already gone from the living room. Feng Jin pursed his lips. Why did he say that just now? Although she had been taking liberties with him these past few days, she didn't overstep her boundaries in other areas. Feng Jin couldn't shake the feeling that she was too far away from him. After tidying up, Feng Jin washed up and got into bed. However, he tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. Where did she go? She always went out at night and came back late at night. He tried to sense her with their contract, but she was always on the move. Her position changed so quickly that he couldn't catch up with her at all. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the groggy Feng Jin felt a touch of coldness beside him. He opened his eyes slightly and saw a face magnified in front of him. Sorry to wake you up. I wanted to steal a kiss from you. Shishang pulled away and retreated to the side. She even helped Feng Jin adjust the blanket. Go to sleep. Shishang was afraid that Feng Jin would be cold. Although she slept next to him at night, she had a separate blanket. Well, it didn't matter if she covered him or not. Feng Jin shifted his body and suddenly got up. He threw the blanket to the floor and covered her with his own. He fell asleep and pulled her into his arms. Ignoring Shishang's struggles, he found her lips and kissed her. His tongue pried open her pearly white teeth. The fusion of fire and ice made Shi Shang's head spin. The comfortable feeling made her subconsciously take back control. But in the next second, she pushed Feng Jin away. Her mouth was still warm, and her cold body seemed to warm up. She propped herself up and retreated to the side. Feng Jin, don't seduce me. You clearly. In the dark, Feng Jin's expression darkened. He could give her all he wanted. He wouldn't die if he lost a little bit of his young energy. Wait a little longer. It'll be soon. Shi Shang's voice was hoarse. She got up and floated toward the door. I'm going to the study. Don't go if I don't touch you, Feng Jin said softly. Shi Shang paused. If you touch me again, I'll beat you up. Shi Shang hesitated for a moment but still floated back. Can I hug you to sleep? You'll be cold. Shi Shang picked up the blanket from the floor and placed it on the bed. If you get sick, I'll want to kill you. I can handle that little bit of cold. Her body wasn't that cold. It was fine if she got used to it. She was just thinking too much of herself. He was a grown man. Was he that weak? No. Then I won't cover myself with the blanket. I'll stay with you and be cold. Feng Jin kicked the blanket away and sprawled out on the bed. Shi Shang. You've learned how to threaten me. Feng Jin. Didn't I learn it from you? Okay. Hug me. But if I find anything wrong with you tomorrow, don't blame me for being ruthless. Even if I like you, I won't hold back when I beat you up. Shi Shang covered Feng Jin with both blankets before snuggling into his arms. Feng Jin hugged Shi Shang contentedly. No, I won't. I'm not as weak as you think. Asterisk, please vote. Recommendation votes 3,500 with additional updates. Vote hard, babies. Chapter 238. Although the exorcists didn't want to acknowledge Feng Jin, Shi Shang had their photos in his hands. If they took out such a humiliating photo, how would their clients view them? How would they trust them? Thus, Feng Jin's Grandmaster conferring ceremony was decided. It was set to be held on December 5th at the Feng family's ancestral home. Feng Jin found it strange that no one came looking for trouble. Even if they were intimidated at the time, they definitely wouldn't be able to take it lying down when they returned. But not only did they swallow it, they even wanted to hold a Grandmaster conferring ceremony for him. Something was fishy. Shi Shang spent more and more time away from home. Sometimes, he couldn't even see her during the day. No matter how Feng Jin asked, Shi Shang would either avoid answering or kiss him to divert his attention. Now. And Sue covered her phone and answered the call like a thief. Feng Jin paused and retreated back to his room. Just as he was about to close the door, and Sue looked in his direction. Okay, I'll be right there. I'll be careful. And Sue hung up and went back to her room to grab her bag. Then, she tiptoed out the door. Feng Jin grabbed his jacket and followed behind Sue. Because of what happened last time, Shi Shang gave his car to Sue when he didn't need it. So, Sue drove his car out of the neighborhood. Feng Jin could only hail a taxi and follow behind. The more Sue drove, the more remote the area became. The taxi driver didn't even dare to drive forward. Feng Jin had no choice but to pay more. When the car in front of them stopped in front of a cemetery, the taxi driver dropped Feng Jin off and ran off. Coming to an abandoned cemetery in the middle of the night? She was crazy. Feng Jin knew this cemetery. It was a cemetery from the Republic of China and had been abandoned for decades. And Sue was already stepping on weeds half her height and was about to disappear from Feng Jin's sight. He hurriedly followed. The cemetery was trapezoidal, and weeds covered the path. And Sue stumbled along, not knowing whether she was walking on the path or on the graveyard. She had done a lot of things recently, so she was a little braver. She walked up without looking sideways, muttering in her heart, I can't see anything, I can't see anything. When she reached the top and saw a familiar figure, she sighed in relief and jogged over. Ghost Jie. Shi Shang leaned against a tombstone with a pale face. Her body was slender. Ghost Jie, why is your complexion so unsightly? Did you run into something very powerful this time? And Su asked anxiously. Seeing her complexion, she immediately went up to support her. Shi Shang shook his head slightly. Why did you hide it from Mr. Feng? He is so powerful he can help you. He's human. He's very weak. But you're not omnipotent. And Su really couldn't understand why she had to shoulder all of this by herself. Who says I'm not? I was just careless today. If you want my life, you'll have to cultivate for another few thousand years. And Su, you're already like this, yet you still have the nerve to be narcissistic. Female Ghost Jie, hurry up and recover. Otherwise, I will go back alone in the morning. Mr. Feng's gaze. It almost stabbed me to death. Mr. Feng could stab her to death with his eyes right now. And Su suddenly fell silent. Instead, she stared behind her with a terrified expression. Shi Shang turned his head to look. Feng Jin stood there quietly. The mountain breeze caused the weeds around him to sway, and there seemed to be an undercurrent surging around him. Shi Shang glared fiercely at Su. Why did you bring him here? And Su felt wronged. She didn't know that Mr. Feng was following them. She had clearly confirmed before leaving the house, and she was especially careful when she came here. How did Mr. Feng follow her here? Feng Jin didn't say a word as he brought Shi Shang back home. And Su very wisely scurried back to her room and locked the door. Mr. Feng was too scary. Feng Jin carried Shi Shang to the bedroom and placed her on the bed. Then, he reached out to remove his clothes. Feng Jin, what are you doing? Feng Jin didn't give Shi Shang a chance to explain. She was currently injured, so Feng Jin could do whatever he wanted. By the time she woke up, it was already the afternoon of the next day. There was no one beside her, and the room smelled very clean. What happened last night was just like a dream. Shi Shang moved her body. Her injuries were mostly healed, but the feeling in her lower body clearly told her that last night wasn't a dream. Feng Jin really did it with her. Shi Shang got out of bed with an ugly expression. There was a new set of clothes next to him, which he picked up and put on. There was no one outside, so Shi Shang had nowhere to vent his pent-up anger. And Su only entered the house when the sky darkened. She was stunned when she saw Shi Shang, and her face turned slightly red. Ghost Jie, are you all right? I'm fine. Where's Feng Jin? Shi Shang's gaze roamed over her body. You ran into Nalan Ing again? Yeah, but I'm fine. The talisman Mr. Feng gave me is very useful. If she hadn't broken the talisman, she wouldn't have gotten into trouble. Oh right. Mr. Feng might be back late tonight, so he asked me to prepare dinner for you. Ghost Jie, what do you want to eat? Shi Shang was so angry that he couldn't eat anymore. Where did Feng Jin go? Running away after eating? Fine. I don't know. And Su shook her head. Feng Jin only asked her to prepare dinner for Shi Shang. He didn't tell her where he was going. Shi Shang frowned. What's the date today? The 4th of December. And Su answered uncertainly. She took out her phone and glanced at the screen. The 5th. It's the 5th today. F*CK, it's the 5th? It's Feng Jin's conferring ceremony. That idiot. If I don't go, do you think those people will let him off? Twice. It's the same thing twice. I'm so angry. Shi Shang rushed over to the Feng family's residence. There was something like a barrier around this place, so Shi Shang slashed his way through it. He immediately alerted the people inside. When Feng Jin heard that Shi Shang was here, his face was full of helplessness. Can't she just be a quiet girl? Feng Jin personally went to pick up Shi Shang, but Shi Shang beat him up as soon as he saw him. He didn't lie, just beat him up. Of course, he only hit the meaty parts. Feng Jin, you're really something. Shi Shang was so angry that his hands were shaking. Feng Jin leaned toward Shi Shang. Didn't you already test whether I'm good or not last night? Shi Shang. Sure enough, after sleeping with someone, the way you talk is different. Little stories don't lie to me. The conferring ceremony went smoothly. Originally, those who saw that Shi Shang wasn't here wanted to stir up trouble. But as soon as Shi Shang stood there, they immediately quieted down. Don't ask why. They didn't want to be beaten up again, and they didn't want their business to be stolen. Without business, what were they going to do? Shi Shang had taught them a lesson over the past few days, and he'd even absorbed the power of many malicious ghosts. Plus, last night's incident with Feng Jin. She felt like she could go anywhere she wanted. It was a pity that these people were so obedient and didn't cause trouble. It was such a pity that she couldn't find a reason to beat them up. Add more. Please vote. Chapter 239. After the ceremony, everyone else was sent away by the Feng family, leaving only the Feng family behind. The head of the Feng family was Feng Jin's youngest uncle. He had thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a square face. He looked very stern. Feng Jin, we won't talk about how you got your Grandmaster title, but don't you think you owe us an explanation for keeping ghosts? Feng Quan's gaze fell on Shi Shang, his brows furrowed. What explanation do you want? Shi Shang glared back at him without fear. Feng Jin held on to Shi Shang and nodded slightly at Feng Quan. Youngest uncle, this is the last time I'm calling you that. What I've done for you is enough to repay you for saving me back then and raising me all these years. From now on, I, Feng Jin, have nothing to do with you anymore. Feng Jin, what nonsense are you talking about? Feng Quan jumped to his feet. He probably felt that he was being too fierce, so his expression softened a little. Youngest uncle didn't mean anything by it. Now that you're a grandmaster, no one dares to question your decisions. I just wanted to remind you that youngest uncle cares about you. If you really care about me, please look more sincere, Shi Shang said. Is this a place where you can say whatever you want? It was all because of this evildoer who seduced Feng Jin. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wanted to leave the Feng family. He now had a Grandmaster title. Although it was a little shady, everyone acknowledged it. It would bring a lot of benefits to the Feng family. What's more, Feng Jin was the most talented child of his generation. Then take this place. That way, I can say whatever I want. Shi Shang smiled maliciously. Feng Jin, do you want him to live in agony or die in agony? Feng Jin pulled back Shi Shang, who wanted to rush forward, and said in a low voice, "This place is dirty." He had been here for 18 years. It was enough. If Shi Shang hadn't snatched this Grandmaster title for him, he wouldn't have taken a single step into this dirty and scheming place. Even so, we can't let them get away with it. How dare they scheme against Feng Jin? Did they think she was dead? Shi Shang directly blew up the Feng family. Since they didn't want it, they might as well destroy it. Feng Jin felt helpless. His wife was too violent. What could he do? Shi Shang continued to absorb the power of evil ghosts. When she reached the level of Ghost King, she would be able to control her urge to absorb yang energy. This was a method she had learned after flipping through many books. Almost all the malicious spirits in the vicinity had been captured by the Shi Shang. For a long time, the exorcists in the area had no business and were forced to leave. The Ghost King, who had been hiding in the Gu mansion for several months, finally showed up and began to wander around Shi Shang. Shi Shang beat them up every time he saw them, while Feng Jin watched from the sidelines. And Sue couldn't help but sigh with emotion. She doesn't even need to deal with her love rival. Master married well. Well, the important thing was that the female ghost sister was mighty and domineering. Later on, and Sue took Feng Jin as her master. It had to be said that her female lead halo was still there. Even Feng Jin praised her. Nalan Ing often pestered Sue, but Sue grew stronger and stronger. At first, she still had to rely on Feng Jin's talismans, but later on, she was able to deal with Nalan Ing on her own. Perhaps it was because the things that couldn't be obtained were the best. Moreover, Ansu was the female lead, so Nalan Ing was obsessed with Ansu. Shang was a bit afraid that if Nalan Ing kept pestering her, Ansu would suddenly lose her cool and fall for Nalan Ing. But when Ansu and that little white from Mount Tiandu walked hand in front of her, she couldn't bear to look at them. Shang had no idea why little white and Ansu were together. While she was working hard to level up, the two of them were actually developing feelings for each other. Just thinking about it made her unhappy. Fortunately, little white wasn't the male lead, so Shang had no intention of separating them. This child, little white, was quite talented. It was just that his reactions were a bit slow, and he had a baby face. It was impossible to tell that he was the same age as Ansu. Every time Ansu and little white went out together, the people around them would think that little white was her younger brother. Later on, Ansu and little white worked together to seal Nalan Ing. Ansu was severely injured, and when everyone was at their wits' end, Shang went into a hospital room and stayed there for a while. When he came out, Ansu's life was no longer in danger. Since then, Ansu's worship of Shang had reached a whole new level. From time to time, she would bring little white to visit Feng Jin's house and disturb their private time together. Feng Jin abhorred this to the core. But he couldn't do anything about it. After all, his wife was the one who called the shots in their house. He could only show off at night. Feng Jin had always wanted to help Shang return to the living world. The things he took from Chimo's villa and the prize from the Exorcist Summit were all props needed for that. "You've been preparing for me since then? So you've been secretly in love with me for that long?" Shang sighed. "That's not it." Feng Jin shook his head. "I started collecting these things because Nalan Ing wanted to return to the living world. I didn't want him to succeed. Asterisk flips table asterisk you should at least pretend. Why are you being so honest?" At the mention of Nalan Ing, Shang asked curiously, "What grudge do you have with him?" Feng Jin frowned. "Why is he going to such great lengths to stop me?" After a moment, he shook his head. "I don't know. I didn't like him the first time I saw him. Plus, as an exorcist, it's normal for me to catch ghosts." "I don't believe you." Shang rolled his eyes. He could coax Ansu and little white, but coax her? A smile appeared on Feng Jin's face. He carried Shang to the bedroom. "Then I'll catch a ghost for you to see." F***ck, Feng Jin, that's enough. It's broad daylight. Damn you, let go of me. I'm on my period. Why would a ghost have a period? Feng Jin retorted coolly. Shang. You might as well be a human. There are at least 7 days a month. In the end, Shang didn't return to the living world. She treasured the time she spent with Feng Jin very much. Although it was chaotic, she still pampered Feng Jin like a little princess. She caught ghosts and fought. She did the heavy chores. Feng Jin wondered if he'd reincarnated into the wrong body. If he hadn't been pampered before, he wouldn't understand how it felt. If it weren't for people seeking death and provoking him, Shang would give Feng Jin a lot of face outside. He was the one who made all the decisions, so he wouldn't feel awkward. But if someone dared to seek death, Shang would explode at the slightest provocation. Because she was the person he liked, he was willing to let her pamper him. He was willing to pamper her. As death approached, Feng Jin grabbed Shang's hand. Will we meet again? He'd always felt a sense of familiarity and tacit understanding from the depths of his soul. We will. Shang's lips curled up into the most perfect smile. I'll find you. You just have to wait for me. Feng Jin tried to force a smile, but he didn't have the strength. He had to leave the girl he loved the most. And his girl would be waiting for him in the future. Shang watched as Feng Jin closed his eyes. He slowly got up and planted a kiss on Feng Jin's forehead. I'll find you. By the way, my name is Shang. Asterisk more and more. Thank you to the babies who tipped us yesterday. Please check the book reviews and comment section for the list of winners of the Mid-Autumn Festival. Yesterday, a girl named Zimo Fayma joined the group to receive a reward, but the group was giving out other benefits, so you were kicked out. Please add her again when you see her. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.